Hello, welcome on this Royal Rumble Saturday. Nicole will join us soon. She's just eating a snack right now. She just got back from tutoring. But yeah, we have some pretty interesting, awesome guests. Tom, you've been on here. I lost count.
That tends to be the way it happens. Yeah. I'm always available. So.
Yeah, Tom is a comic book writer, the creator, just everything Big Dog Inc., right? Except for artist.
Yep. Writer, publisher, art director. I ship the books out too. So yeah, we kind of one man show.
Yeah, and then Brian, also in the comic book field, but you're an artist.
But I don't do all the interior stuff. I'm not gifted to doing sequential pages like that. That's a different art form.
Yeah, you're mostly cover artist, right? And just pins and stuff.
Yeah, it's starting to get watered down though. I don't know, like you say cover artist, people are like, oh, you're one of those guys, you don't know how to draw anything but just one picture. I'm like, well, don't fucking buy it. I don't know.
And then also joining us all the way from the UK, James. And then our good friend, Jay, there in San Antonio, who's off to some XFL party there in San Antonio. And he'll be in and out because he's driving. So
now, what is the SAJ? Is that from the SA Fishing Company?
No, that just stands for San Antonio, SAJ. Oh, okay.
Shit, no. It's just SAJ. It's a little stab at our friends over in St. Louis, who seem to think that they have the greatest team in the XFL. We're about to find out in another couple of weeks that that's not actually the case. So that's what that's all about.
So how's everybody's week been? I guess we'll start with Tom.
I mean, pretty normal week for me overall. My weeks are all pretty much the same, except this is the last week of my Kickstarter campaign. So today is actually the last day. It ends tonight. So just been kind of, trying to pimp it out as best we can and make sure everybody knows that this is the last day. So if you're not in now, there's no tomorrow. So
yeah. And then for those that might not be following or, even know who Big Dog Inc. is, what is this Kickstarter? Of course, I know it's Ursa Minor.
Yeah, so it's Ursa Minor. So in 2020, this is the end of our 10-year anniversary for Ursa Minor. So last year was the start of it. In 2012, we launched the book. It's our horror book, Vampires, Werewolves. Our lead character is the last of the werebears. So we get into all kinds of monsters and stuff throughout the whole series. But this is the finale of Volume 3. And it was, like I said, as we started last year for the 10-year anniversary of our book, we've been doing this Big Dog Inc. for 13 years now. So this is year 13 for us. It's just, I do tons of stuff, but what happened is we ran into these anniversaries. So we had in 2020, it was Big Dog Inc.'s overall anniversary, 10 years, Critter and Penny for Your Soul, 10 years. And the following, it was Legend of Oz. So we celebrated that 10-year anniversary. This year's Ursa Minor 10-year anniversary. So we've kind of been focusing on these books for a while that have these big milestones. And then this year is kind of a little strange year. So with our 13-year anniversary, we're just kind of getting weird with it, doing a lot of little spin-offs and side stories. Princesses versus Zombies will be back. We're doing a new vampire book called Yeehaw Vampires, which is basically like Thelma and Louise meets the Dukes of Hazzard. Just having some fun in year 13. And then when we get back to year 14, we'll kind of get back to more focused, like we're going to do this title this year and so on.
Awesome. what about you, Brian? I know you had an awesome commission that you were very proud of that you were showing off. You're muted.
I don't normally use the word proud, but it was something new, right? So I did a Ghost Rider. I was commissioned to draw a Ghost Rider riding a bull. And I was like, are you like, I wasn't sure if he was wanting like a cartoon version or was he wanting it to be grounded? So I went with grounded, but I did the little speckly fire looking stuff in the background, which was new for some of the stuff I've done. So that was my week, is pretty much just banging on that and the Velma piece.
Yeah. And if you have if you want to share, so we can show people what they look like.
Oh yeah. I had it up earlier and then I was like, all right, well, I don't want to be selfish about it. So there's this.
That's a sick Ghost Rider piece.
Yeah, so I started with the bull because I figured that would be okay to do. And then I gave him a big belt buckle because I thought a rodeo guy would have a big belt buckle. Other than that, it's just fun to look at. So we'll see. I'm going to have Dan Kemp color it for me. I worked with him just one other time, and that was on like this Velma piece. I did. Well, shit, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. So this was another commission that someone asked me to do. Like they wanted me to do a Velma. And I was like, ooh, let's do a Velma movie poster where she gets to unmask like 6 bad guys. So I picked 6 bad guys that had masks. And I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And he was like, oh, that's a cool idea. So he just wanted Velma. That's all he wanted. But I came up with all the rest of the stuff. Just thought it would be cool, like a movie poster. Because I don't do sexy women that well. There's other artists that specialize in tits and ass and stuff. And I don't, that's just not something I normally mess with. So I just thought this was more intriguing. And I was playing a different sport than the guys that just draw cleavage.
That's actually pretty cool. That would look good on a wall in a frame. Yeah.
So I'll have these in limited prints. And then I finished, oh shit, where'd it go? What was I working on? I did some, oh yeah, this. I'm waiting for Dan to color this one for me.
Rocksteady and Bebop.
Yeah.
That's cool. Hey, Jay, were you a Ninja Turtles fan growing up?
Who was that to? Sorry?
Jay. And James, if you want to answer too.
I'll let Jay go first.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely. I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan growing up. I would say probably Leonardo was my favorite. I got to grow up, product of the 80s with the video games and, the TV show and just all the good stuff with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So yeah, that's kind of an understatement.
Man, that's sick there.
Yeah, so the Days of the Dead convention is here in Atlanta this weekend, and the actor guy is there and the director is there. I was like, man, I wish I had some money. I'd go get him to sign, because I still have the original art for this. I'd be like, I'd have him sign it, that way I could sell it for even more.
Nice. So, Tom, if you want to go ahead and get your Kickstarter shared up, and then I'll talk to James here while you get that set up. James, how's your week been? I know today you're kind of having a coughing spell.
Yeah, not too bad. It's not been too bad, other than the coughing spell and the health stuff. From the side of the other podcast I have involvement with, which is Talking Codswallop. If you look back here, I've got the T-shirt, bit of promo. We've hit our 250th episode. So we did that one, Gemma and I, and that went really well. And you can find us, obviously, going for a search for us on the internet. But also the big thing, Brian, is that you got me to be part of your family and get involved in doing some editorial stuff through with films. So pretty much it's been a very good week from the point and with you.
I saw a little bit of what you're working on, and I think people are going to be proud of that editorial when it comes out.
Cool, thank you. I've got a few other ideas. Can I ask a question? Because I'm intrigued. So, Brian, you did the wonderful artwork with Velma, and I don't want to, I just want to throw this out through. Who's seen the Velma cartoon?
No thanks.
I watched the first 15 minutes of episode 1 and decided that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I don't even think we made it. We didn't make it all. Maybe we made it through the first episode, but yeah, it works for Harley Quinn, but it just doesn't work for Velma.
I probably laughed at it twice, but I just didn't. I think we're all of the same mind that I could not fathom what it was trying to do, who it was aimed at, what its kind of its purpose was, and there was to me there was absolutely no linkage to any of the previous stuff.
Yeah.
If it was a brand new product, you see with a lot of things, it was when they do like a remake or a reimagining, if it's a brand new product, I probably could have understood it and dug it and thought, hey, it's great, it's different, it's brilliant. But nah, can't see if that gets commissioned for a second series.
No chance.
It's the end times. It's over.
Truly, yeah. I mean, we're not alone here. I mean, look at it is getting dredged through the mud on basically every whatever analytics you want to look at when people are talking about, do you like Velma? It's like, I know there's a handful of folks that are, I think, just sort of want to like it just because counterculture and so on. But the majority of the people that have seen this thing, and I've seen clips because it's on Facebook and stuff. People just post clips. So I've seen some stuff. And I'm like, dear God, this is now. I'm sure they're showing the most horrendous portions that they're like, this is the worst. Like, let me put it up here. But yeah, no, I won't go anywhere near it.
Yeah,
I have to be honest. I've not seen review levels that bad for something where it's doing a 1 for ages. I mean, there was an element of it. It sounds terrible that liked the fact it failed because what I saw of it initially didn't work for me. I just couldn't see it appealing to me or, to be pretty fair, to anybody. So it's not a major shock. It's failed. But if it does hit a second series, which I'm really hoping it does, it's going to be a strange one.
And the thing is, I like the creator. I think Mindy's very good. She's a great writer. I just don't think this is meant for her. Yeah.
I hated it.
I'm gonna bring this up. So Tom, you want to go ahead and talk about your Kickstarter here, and then after this we'll kind of explain about what's going on in San Antonio.
Yeah, sure. So again, guys, this is our Ursa Minor campaign. That is Naomi. She's the last of the werebears. You can see she's kind of partial transformation there with her big bear arms. It's old school horror stuff. I mean, I grew up with horror stuff from the 70s and 80s for the most part, Hammer horror and all the stuff like The Howling and things like that in the 80s. So this is very much a tribute back to that kind of stuff. All the blood, claws, and fangs that we love with vampires and werewolves and everything, but none of the sparkly, angsty garbage that we've been fed over the last decade or so. So basically, this is the final. This is like the first 5 or 6 pages of the book here. It'll all be colored, but this is Fabio Simau's ridiculous art. So this will be the final. There's our werebear, of course, in the background there. In our story, werebears are the only things that can kill what are termed the vampire legends: Lady Bathory, Dracula, Orlok, those kinds of characters. And should you manage to kill one of those vampire legends, their entire line burns with them. So if you kill one of those guys, the entire line, it's sort of like, what does it mean to kill the head vampire? But we've sort of extrapolated that to the entire line from the history of that guy biting the first dude and then that guy biting the next dude. The entire line burns. And Lady Bathory was killed in the first volume, and that's where we kind of learned about this thing called the burning. And so now we're on volume 3, and they've tracked down Dracula. And that's sort of where we are with this particular story. So here is a lot of stretch goals. So we have these chibi stickers that are unlocked, some additional art, poker chips and stuff, just lots of fun bonus items. So that if you're pledging, you're going to get a lot of just fun bonus items as well. This is a preview for the Yeehaw Vampires that we talked about earlier on. Again, basically Thelma and Louise meets the Dukes of Hazzard, but they're vampires. So this is a little fun spin-off side story we're doing this summer. And And then there's just lots of variant covers. So we always have just your basic cover, your story cover. This is Fabio Simao. So this is what the insides of the book will look like when it's colored as well. There are logo versions and then virgin editions for each one. All the virgin editions are printed to order. So here's the brides. All the logos as well were done by Ed Lavallee, and we don't really do homages anymore. Like I'm tired of the homage art, but we wanted to pay tribute to where we came from, and so all of the logos are based on old 70s horror comics. So like the brides is based on the House of Secrets, things like that. And so Ed Lavallee did all of our logos. The Lost Girls is where we take 80s girls and turn them into vampires. So we have Erica Leniak in Baywatch turned into a vampire. Here's the Raveyard, which was a connecting piece of dancing vampires in the graveyards. She's a witch. This is our know-it-all witch from the book April. Hitched on Route 666, Vampire Love Stories by Keith Garvey. And then Lara the Lycanthrope. That's Naomi. That, again, mid-transformation. She does go full bear. But that's where it came from. Like, it was Ursa Minor. And somehow in my head, I started spinning the idea of Ursa Minor, the little bear. What does that mean? How do we use it? And we turned out to use this young girl who can turn into a gigantic werebear. And we've been doing this for 10 years. So it's been a popular book. And we are right on the border of having our best Ursa Minor campaign ever. We're like $500 away from beating the funding, and I'm not sure how many on the backers, but we're close to beating both on this campaign. So that's where we're at.
Jay, I totally think that you would dig Tom's books. I did, I think the other day I sent you a link to his Facebook page. So Jay, you are on your way to some kind of party there in San Antonio, right? You want to kind of explain what's going on there?
Hey guys, I'm sorry. I'm having like a horrible connection day. I don't know if it's because just the weather or the 18 million people that are in town for the wrestling event here, but it's breaking up just a little bit, so I do apologize.
Yeah, but you're on your way to an XFL party, right?
Yeah, actually, so there's a lot going on in San Antonio right now, right? The first of which we already talked about is the wrestling event that's downtown in the Alamo Dome, and traffic is already, it's just ridiculous here. Saturday afternoon at 1:30, we don't normally have traffic jams. Most of the interstates here are congested. Everybody's, starting to make their way down there. They're trying to make their way to park and ride locations so they can, get down to the event. I know some of our mutual XFL friends camped out at a location last night to meet some of the wrestlers this morning. So yeah, there's a lot going on with all that. In regards to the XFL, we do in fact have a fan fest going on tonight. The San Antonio Brahmas fan page is working with a local venue to put on a second event that we did. Now, it's key important, detail that I say second event because the XFL or the Brahmas fans have already done a first event. And if you look around the league, the San Antonio Brahmas fans are the only ones that are really putting on any kind of event other than maybe St. Louis that's getting any kind of, traction whatsoever. And that's not to say that, the other cities won't get there, but they're definitely just not garnering the attention that San Antonio fans are. So that being said, we are having an event tonight over at Brewster's Pub. If you're here in San Antonio, definitely come on down and check it out. If you're San Antonio adjacent, come on down and check it out. It's just going to be us XFL fans getting together, kind of building up hype, building up awareness for the team and everything. And we're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
Again, important to note that this is the fan.
Uh-oh. Looks like he broke up. Oh, lost him. So until he gets back, Tom, I know I follow you on Facebook.
Hey.
You're a huge Chargers fan and stuff like that. So are you
Sure,
following
rub it
the
in,
XFL?
man. Rub it in. Make it happen. Go ahead.
Are you following what the XFL is doing? I mean, they have a partnership with the NFL.
No, I'm
There we
not
go.
really. Or I should say loosely. I mean, I'm a football fan. So, and I remember when the XFL came back, it was like 2020, right before it got shut down. I was kind of vaguely watching, and they were doing some interesting things with like their kicking, right? So you could get like more points, like the further back the field goals were, stuff like that, which I thought was kind of cool. I actually do that in my fantasy league. If you kick a 50-yard field goal, it's worth 5 points. So the fact that was actually becoming a real thing, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting and cool. So I like that the XFL is looking at not just putting on football, but monkeying around with some of the methodology of football. And so I think that'll be interesting if they continue to do that kind of stuff. But I'm while I'm a football fan, I'm not a college football fan. It's very, very low level that I kind of watch USFL, XFL, all that kind of stuff. My football heart exists and beats, for 6 months out of the year, and then the rest of the time I got to go back to work and do my stuff. I can't watch more football.
Yeah, but is it you have like a favorite player, right? Dicker the kicker, right? Is that what
Dicker the kicker is unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Justin Herbert guy. Like I can't believe that we've stumbled into Justin Herbert after losing Phillip Rivers. That's an unbelievable back-to-back setup for quarterbacks. But we have suffered with kicking problems for almost 10 years. And really ever since John Carney was out the door, we've had kicking problems. And we've lost game after game after game because of freaking kickers. And so this year we actually had a good kicker, Dustin Hopkins, but he got hurt. And so Cameron Dicker came in, and basically over the last 8 games that he played, he missed 2 field goals the entire time. Unfortunately, one of them was in the playoffs, which lost us the game. Again, we lost because of a kicker. But based on track record for the last decade, he was a breath of fresh air for us.
Yeah. Maybe next year. The Chargers did look good this year. I mean,
well, the Chargers were decimated by injuries. I mean, virtually every position. I mean, when you have injuries to your quarterback, all your wide receivers, literally all of them had concussions or were out for periods of time. Your kicker, we had 3 kickers this year. All go down. We had a line. I mean, it was just a disaster. The only one that was never hurt was Austin Eckler, but because our offensive line was so destroyed, he could never run the ball. So, I think there's a lot of the pieces are there. Lombardi is out, as he should be. He was
and this was like though across the league, right? There was tons of injuries across the league, and
tons of injuries. But with the Chargers, it was like starting at week 2, everything just started to collapse. Joey Bosa was gone. I mean, just everything just collapsed. And this is the one thing that I think is the testament to the team and to Staley and why he's still there is, despite all of that, they still found a way into the playoffs. Not just on the last week like the Jaguars did. They clinched a playoff spot 2 weeks before the end of the season. So they managed to not simply exist, but be relevant through all of that injury period. So Lombardi had to go. He was not using Herbert and the team effectively. But I think the only reason that Staley is there is because they did make the playoffs. And probably even more so, the Chargers were not going to go get Sean Payton. That was not going to happen. Or Payton wasn't wanted too much is kind of what they we're talking about. He wants so much control, and the Chargers aren't going to give up that control. So,
yeah. So another thing that is kind of a running joke with Tom is everybody says Tom hates everything when it comes to movies.
Yeah, we'll find out today how much I hate everything.
Yeah. So you'll post like a stack of Blu-rays or DVDs or whatever you like. See, hashtag Tom hates everything.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, what have you watched that you thought was okay or whatever?
Or otherwise.
I think the last 2 movies I saw in the theater was Black Adam and The Menu. And Black Adam, I mean, I came in with the lowest possible expectations. And I was entertained by it. It was fine, but there wasn't anything there we hadn't seen before in like every other superhero movie. So I was pretty, I knew it was going to do well to a start. It's The Rock in a movie. He's going to sell tickets. But if there's nothing there to make you go back and see it again, it's going to go right off a cliff. And that's exactly what happened. There's just nothing to it that we haven't seen before. So while it was okay, I enjoyed Shazam a lot better than Black Adam. So I'm kind of curious as to the second one. I don't know how that's going to play, but the Menu, I went out sort of kind of on a lark. And it was funny because I'm not a foodie guy. Like, I don't watch Food Network or any of that kind of stuff. Like, food is food to me. Put it in my face, and then I go on to my next activity for the day. So when this movie started, I don't think this is really a spoiler. There's a guy in there who's a super foodie. And I mean, everybody really is in this movie because they're all going to go have this special dinner on this guy's island. And there's so much foodie talk about, oh, creme fraiche and this, and you make it with this and you eat it with this and you drink it with the wine and you pair it. And I'm just like, oh my God, please don't tell me this is the whole movie that I'm going to listen to foodie talk. I was ready to just be like, no, just give me my money back. I'm out of here. But then it kind of hung a left turn early enough in the film that I was like, oh, okay, I got it. I'm fine. And ended up being a good movie. I liked it. I don't think it's brilliant. I don't think it's, it's not gonna be on anyone's like top 10 list probably, but it was a good movie. It was it was a good cast, and it had a couple of nice little twists, but it was good, better than Black Adam.
What about you, Brian? Have you seen anything lately that you either liked or didn't like?
Well, I made the mistake of hearing that The Menu was great when it was in the movie theater, and then it came out on one of these Tuesdays on Vudu, and I was like, all right, well, I'll just buy it. And it turns out I had it on HBO Max, so I was kind of pissed off that I paid when I could have just gone to HBO Max and watched it. And then after I watched the movie, for me, it's a one-timer. Like, once I watch it one time, I don't have to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I don't like purchasing movies that are one-timers. So I'm kind of mad that I did that. But it was okay. But I don't need to watch it ever again.
Yeah.
But I went back. I watch movies almost every day. But I watch like older, like stuff that I already know that I like, or stuff that I'm familiar with from a long time ago. Because I watch movies to leave my drawing table to go just like decompress. I just want to turn my brain off and just turn some shit on that I know that I don't have to worry about following the story or whatever. I already know what's going on. So this week I watched Kindergarten Cop. I watched The Rock, and I don't know what else I did, but I use the app, the Letterboxd app. If you're not familiar with that, I really enjoy that app for keeping track of movies that you watch, and you can post reviews that people can see. And then at the end of the year, you can click and it'll show you like, you've watched 20 movies starring this guy, so maybe that guy's your favorite. And you've watched 8 movies with this director or this writing team. And it gives you all these analytics based on the movies that you've done. Like, your most watched day is Sunday. You watch the most movies. So it's really cool how they compile all that data. So I enjoy that. But I watch movies.
Yeah. The Letterboxd is pretty cool because you can rank your movies too. Like, when you're looking at the end of the year, you can say, this is my favorite movies of the year.
Yeah, you can make lists. Like, if you pay for the whatever program it is, like, you can create lists that other users can see, like my top 10 Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and then you have your top 10 and people can thumbs up or whatever. But I don't know. As a movie person, I really enjoy having that, being able to share that. No one seems to give a shit that I have it, but I do have it.
And what about you, Jay? Are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just trying to save some bandwidth. I am not a super big movie guy, unfortunately. I don't sit still well in the movie theaters, and my wife absolutely hates horror movies, so that really kind of ruins, most of the movies that I want to see. But I do get to sneak in some TV shows, and the one, I kind of feel bad admitting this, but not really. I absolutely love Tulsa King. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, but it's Stallone.
Yeah.
And he's, a mafia capo, basically does a 25-year stint in jail, comes out. The whole mafia family has basically kind of moved on past him. And so then, what does he do? So they kind of exile him to Tulsa, and he winds up taking over. And there's just some really great storylines, some really great action scenes. And then, of course, Stallone's absolutely horrible acting. It's just a chuckle to hear him talk. So that show really is kind of like my guilty pleasure right now. That's kind of like, that's what I look forward to, being that, there really isn't much going on in the, the Marvel TV universe or anything like that. So yeah, that's kind of my latest addiction with TV.
What about you, James?
Well, it's interesting that, Jay was just talking about Tulsa Kings. That's something that I really got into. I really found that enjoyable. It was far better than I expected it to be. And just going back to what you were saying, Tom, about Black Adam, I wasn't that impressed by it. I thought it was okay. I thought it was watchable. But the thing is, before Black Adam came out, I was always convinced that it was not this great savior of the DC universe that they kept praising it to be. I said it might be I remember saying to my friends, it might be all right. To me, the most interesting part of Black Adam, the best character in it actually, was Dr. Fate, Pierce Brosnan in it. He was the character that I got the most, I thought he did a very good performance, and it was the most interesting characters. But for me, what I've been watching at the moment, and I'm on the final episode, I literally binged it, every episode back to back, was the second series of the show Hunters on Amazon, which is, if anyone's seen it, it's all about Jewish people in the 60s going into the 1960s, going to the 1970s, hunting Nazis. And it has an interesting spin because it gives you the what if, not giving anything away, but the what if Hitler is still alive. The rollout from that. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. It's very good.
So it's like the Apple series where Russia lands on the moon instead of the US, kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't ever recommend watching it while you're eating, say, particularly messy things, because it can get pretty violent and pretty bloody. But it's a good show, and it's somewhat. There was another thing I watched a week or so ago, which was, I think it's called In a Pale Blue Eye. Christian Bale is the star of it, and it's set in the aftermath of the Civil War in America, and it has Edgar Allan Poe in it, and it looks at murders, and that's very good.
He is Poe. Really... Doesn't he play Poe?
No,
he doesn't. Okay,
he interacts with Poe. He gets to meet a young Poe, and it takes an element of reality, a bit like with Hunters. It takes an element of reality because Poe was serving, with the army infantry in it. And turns it on its head and changes it. And that, again, is another one where I'd recommend just be careful what you're eating, because I was in the middle of trying to eat something and it came to someone being disemboweled.
Yeah, so, both of those are. It's funny. You're the first person that I know to talk about either of them, and both of them are on my list. Like I saw a trailer for Hunters. I was like, oh, that looks cool, and then the Bale one. So they're both on my list. So yeah, okay.
Yeah. They'll definitely both keep your attention. Definitely.
Good.
The Pale Blue Eye is on my list, but I don't want to start anything until I finish some other things.
So somebody has a question for you guys. Now, Jay already answered this question, but they want to know, what is your guilty pleasure movie and or TV show?
I think probably everybody knows what my answer is. It's basically anything Godzilla. That's my go-to. That's my sit down, turn my brain off, enjoy some cities being destroyed. It doesn't matter what era it is, though. I like the new CGI Godzilla stuff. It takes it all to a new level. But I'll sit down and watch the rubber suit dudes run into each other too, and just enjoy it. That's fine. So yeah, Godzilla is always sort of like, I don't know what to watch. I guess it's a Godzilla day. Okay.
What about you, Brian?
I don't know that I have any. I have stuff that makes me uncomfortable. Like I watched Euphoria. I wasn't sure what to expect with that television show, and that show made me uncomfortable, but I finished both seasons of it. So that was kind of odd. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that one. Like it's about teenagers having sex and doing drugs and shit. And I just like, why am I watching this? But it's intriguing. I think it's done really well. And it's fun to watch. And Zendaya is a blast in it. Like she is a monster. I've noticed that I try to watch stuff now to watch more of like what the actor is bringing to it. Like instead of just watching the movie for the movie, I'm watching like I wonder what the actor was thinking and what this, because that stuff is more what I'm thinking about now at this point in my life. But it's like Jingle All the Way when Christmas time comes, like that's my guilty pleasure, like holiday movie. I love some Jingle All the Way. I like recently I watched. Oh well, you know what? My guilty pleasures aren't really like I'm afraid to tell people about them, but there are some obscure ones that people are like, what in the fuck? Like Tusk for me, like the movie Tusk is hilarious. Like
I love that film. I absolutely love it.
You try to explain what the movie is, and then people are like, what in the hell are you talking about? And I'm like, dude, you just have to watch it. It is hilarious, but it's not funny. It's weird.
James?
For me, a guilty pleasure for TV, it's one that I always will return to, is Frasier. I can watch and watch. If I'm having a bad day, I will generally put that on to try and improve my mood. I just love it as a show. I do have real concerns of making a follow-up series because I can't see that working, but, you know, we will see how that pans out. A guilty pleasure film is probably still and will forever be James Bond film, The Living Daylights, which again is something that I just love and can watch and watch over and over again. That generally will improve my mood if I'm having a bad day. So
The Living Daylights. Well, that's not usually where the Bond fans go. Interesting.
It's really mine. I'm scared to like say it when Tom's on the show.
Okay, let me get ready to destroy your hopes and dreams here.
So when I was younger, like when it first came out, I am still, even though he's dead, a giant Heath Ledger fan. And so 10 Things I Hate About You was always it just made me feel better. It was like, oh, you know, he's singing on the steps and everything. So that was my thing. And I will still watch it. I own it. I probably own 2 different versions of it. And if it's on TV, like if I just pass by it, I'll watch it wherever it is in the movie. And then on TV, like guilty pleasure is anything that's like paranormal or true crime, because I have Discovery Plus and I watch very obscure, weird forensic shows. So, nobody will want to be my friend because I know how to murder them. But that's my thing. But like, yeah, 10 Things I Hate About You.
Okay, Tom. So was that?
Well, I don't know why I'd be upset about any of that.
Well, 10 Things I Hate About You wasn't the. Ow! Goddamn cat!
She's evil today.
Fucking, why is she attacking me? She sits on your lap and comes and gets me.
The paranormal stuff is more weird than 10 Things I Hate About You. And not that it's weird, because I watch this stuff too, but it's like so much of that I just can't buy into, because so much of what they do can be so easily set up, you know, and I'm like, I don't know if this is, what are we doing here? Are we really looking at Bigfoot? Are we really looking at ghosts? Are we just looking at people setting these stages for a TV show?
I like when people tell their stories and then they reenact stuff, like the things. I would rather watch those. I'm not a fan of I'll occasionally watch like Ghost Adventures or whatever, but I'm not. I get mad when people are like screaming for no reason. I'm like, you didn't see anything, damn it.
No, you had the producer off screen saying, "All right, now it's time to scream."
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah. There's some weird stuff on TikTok. I don't know where else it's played, but I've seen it on TikTok, where these guys are going into cemeteries and they have some sort of like a voice synthesizer or something, and it's picking up sounds around them, and it's supposedly picking up the sounds of ghosts or whatever you want to say in the thing. And so they're going up to, like, you know, it's reading like, oh, there's like red on this this tombstone, let's go see. And they're like, hey, spirit, can we talk to you? And sometimes you'll hear something, sometimes you don't. And so that's been kind of interesting, but again, it still feels like all of that can just be set up. And so while it's kind of freaky and weird, especially their reactions, because you know, sometimes a ghost will be like, run away, and they're just like, okay, we're gonna go this way, see ya, you know. So it's it's fun in that regard, but again, it's like, I don't know how much of this is real, so take it for what it is.
Yeah, I do listen to some of the stuff where you've got them talk about so like, well, ghosts and monster stuff, and I'm just thinking, no. It's too obviously a setup, but I worry that just when you were discussing things like, you know, crime stuff and sort of ghost-based stuff, I think I've really messed myself up because I'm watching too much true crime stuff about grisly murders. And I'm convinced I've desensitized myself.
And you know what's funny? A lot of the true crime stuff and the paranormal stuff you've watched, a lot of it happens in the UK.
Yeah. But I think that's because there's so much.
We're
like,
older.
Longer time period. Yeah.
Well, we tend to throw things away. Like, we tend to rebuild on top of something, and then basically the building and the history of the building is lost. So, you know, in the UK, it feels like everything is a little bit older, and so the history of that is still solidly, you know, well, there.
It's interesting though that in the UK that they have, like, with true crime, they have like their own, like, Jeffrey Dahmer and all, like, you know, people like that. But it seems like if you compare like the American crime to like the UK crime, like, it just, the way that they talk is different, like when they're explaining the story, and like I don't know, I think maybe in the here we're still kind of prissy in the States, where in the UK they're like, you know, just whatever. I guess you guys are more open, right? Does that make sense?
I think there's a sheltered like aspect of our programming that, you know, like, people don't come right out and say, this guy was a fucking crazy son of a bitch. Like, nobody's gonna say that, but I mean, they will say it on a UK show. But I enjoy the grislier the better, I guess. Like, but I also like the stuff that I've already heard too. So like some of the UK ones that are like pretty famous, like the husband and wife that were killing people in their yard and burying them.
Fred and Rose West. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, oh, so every time I see that one pop up on something, I watch it because I'm like, what new information can I get about this weird couple? Like,
so I have a question for everyone.
Not okay.
And then Anne has a question. So my question is this, and so James, you're a really big film guy, and I know Tom, you know, he's busy with Big Dog Inc., but he watches a lot of stuff too. So what we're gonna do is, James, you're gonna recommend a film that both Brian and Tom should check out if they haven't already, and they'll let you know. And then Tom, anything that's not Big Dog Inc. in the world of comics, can you recommend to James? And the same thing with Brian, since you work in the comic industry. So we'll start with James.
I'm going to go with a film that I recently watched that holds a real place in my heart. That when it came out, got slandered. It did not seem to succeed as best it should, and it's the film Tron Legacy, which is a sequel to the original film Tron. I think it came out in 2010, if my memory serves me, Tron Legacy. I mean, I think it's amazing. It still knocks my socks off every time I watch it visually. I think it's an incredibly compelling story, and I also like the fact that even if you weren't a real fan of the original Tron, you can still jump into it, in my opinion, and watch it and enjoy it. I also find it interesting, as I said, visually, it's stunning, it's wonderful. I think emotionally, it really hits me as well, elements of the story. So that's one I would recommend that people really do have a look at.
Yeah, Tron. I've softened on Tron. When I first saw it, I was really like, okay. And then I've watched it, but visually it was really cool. But I think my issue with Tron was that it was a little too much like the original. You know, it's like, oh, we got the light cycles again, we got the discs again, we got this again, we got this again. But there is definitely more story to it. And I've watched it a few more times, and since my sort of harsher opinion has softened, and I do like it, and it has a great soundtrack. Daft Punk's soundtrack is like perfect for the whole thing. So yeah, no, I would agree. It's good, and supposedly we're getting the third. It has.
I've heard
been
that. Yeah,
that's happening.
Yeah, with Jared Leto.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which who knows if that's good or bad necessarily, but I like the idea that they're going to at least try and create a wrapped up trilogy of some sort. Hopefully it's true. Hopefully it's good. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I do think part of the problem Tron Legacy had is probably it was asking a bit too much of itself. Certainly from a financial standpoint for Disney, it was probably was pushing for a bit too much. I mean, I can see the problems it had. It's a sequel to a film that, you know, there's a huge gap in the time between the original film and the sequel. And they did put a lot of emphasis, I guess, on hoping that they'd either get people who've been intrigued, you know, and enjoyed the original, or that they could hopefully bring new people in with it. But as you said, you know, soundtrack, etc., is wonderful. A third one is going to be interesting. Hopefully it will work. We'll see if it happens. Jared Leto has not had the most successful run on films of late, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So now, from your guys' world, what would you recommend to James?
This is really hard because there's so much, and it depends on what you like for the most part. But I think I'm going to recommend something that a lot of people haven't heard of necessarily. It's an old indie book from the 80s and went into the 90s, done by Mark Schultz. It was originally published by Kitchen Sink Press. It's called Xenozoic Tales. It's basically a futuristic story where, you know, dinosaurs have returned, society has collapsed, dinosaurs have returned. The main dude, it was actually adapted into a cartoon in the 90s called Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. A lot of people probably have heard of that, but the original comic was a black and white comic by Mark Schultz called Xenozoic Tales, and it's not a big huge series. It's a very much a passion project for Mark, and you can kind of see the love that he puts into it from his art. Like, it's very, at the very beginning, it's all black and white, so it's pencil and ink stuff, but it's kind of sharp inks, very defined. And then as it goes along, you can watch Mark's art evolve and grow into more like ink wash, as opposed to really hard inks. You start to get feathering in the inks and stuff. So as the series goes along, it's still Mark Schultz, but it's like an evolution of the comic, the story, the characters, and Mark all at the same time. And I think it's only like 16 issues. They're not hard to find. You can get them out there, and it was actually just reprinted in a big hardcover edition as well. It's a stunning, beautiful book. It's very easy to read. And if you like dinosaurs and you know, Cadillacs being chased by dinosaurs, it's, you know, I don't know what else you want in a comic book. That's the peak right there.
And you know, they had toys of that too.
Cadillacs and Dinosaurs did have toys. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, it was only like a one season cartoon, and it was super goofy and strange, as it should be. Whereas the comic is a little more serious. It's kind of like I would say the tone in storytelling is similar to like Warlord of Mars, but it is on Earth, and it is the future, and, you know, society's collapse and so on, flooding and all kinds of things. So it's fun, and it's great art, and it's tight storytelling. And like I said, it's a really interesting evolution from just these 16 issues of everything. The story evolves, the characters evolve, and Mark evolves, and it's a great visual, you know, treat to run through it all.
Brian, would you add anything?
I don't read comics. I don't read books. I don't do any of that stuff. I just draw pictures. So I don't have like the overwhelming wealth of knowledge and all this cool. Like, I admire that kind of stuff. I feel like I'm cheap when people like, because I do movie stuff, right? And I see other people talk, and they're talking about people in the 20s and the 30s, and I'm like, I don't give a shit about any of that old stuff. I want to start doing new stuff. And comics, like, I just want to do what I'm gonna do because I don't know. So I'm a turd, and I can't. I feel like fraudulent when people say, "Well, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm an actor and I draw comic book shit." And they're like, "Oh, really? Do you know director so and so from the 30s?" I'm like, "Fuck no, man." Like I don't have like I watch interviews with Quentin Tarantino, and he's like got this whole library of information of cinema history in his head, and he's spouting all these things off, and I'm just like, I'm not that smart about anything that I do or that I'm passionate about or goals I want to achieve. And does that mean that I'm doing something wrong? I feel like that's kind of, I don't know. So I don't have shit.
No, there's definitely people that just exist in the moment. And that's just where they want to be. That's not an unusual thing. You'll see a lot of actors and stuff that'll be like, I never even saw that movie that I was in. Famously, Michael Caine was in Jaws: The Revenge, and
he didn't even know it existed.
He knew that it existed, but he told somebody, somebody was ragging on him, like, I can't believe you were in Jaws 4. What a terrible movie. And he was like, yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I have seen the house that it bought for my mom, and it's amazing. Yeah. So there are definitely people that just do a thing, whatever the thing is, and then we're on to the next thing. So that's not that unusual.
Yeah. And so here's the question from Ann, and I'm sure, Tom, you may have an answer.
No, I don't really read books, to be perfectly honest. Or at least I should say I don't really read fiction. I read a lot of stuff. I read a lot of history and things, like for my reference for what I need for my stories. But I don't dive into a lot of fiction stuff for a number of reasons. But I as far as like if there was comic books that would need to be adapted, actually, I'm really happy that Invincible got adapted. Robert Kirkman's Invincible was the best superhero comic on the market for its existence. So I'm glad that became a cartoon, and we're going to get more of that.
They say they're doing live action Invincible.
I wouldn't count on that.
Well, they're trying to put it together, is what they said. That's what Kirkman said.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and with the success of things like The Boys, sort of the violent superhero stuff that's also doing well, and that is live action. Invincible is a very, very violent comic book. So it doesn't surprise me they're going to try to do it. I think it's going to be hard to do and hard to pull off, but I think the animated series is perfect for it. As far as, I mean, I would love to see a Xenozoic Tales live action thing adapted and turned into that. I mean, we got Jurassic Park and all this stuff. It would be simple, easy to do. So I'm sure there's some comics that I would look at and say, like, let's adapt this. Everything Big Dog Inc. should be adapted. Hollywood, everything Big Dog Inc. should be adapted.
Yeah, especially that Oz book. Ursa Minor would be awesome.
Well, we almost had our Oz book sold as a TV show. We were painfully close to having it sold as a TV show, but we ran into the Hollywood standard of you have to go all the way to the top of the ladder, and then whoever's at the top, they get to say yes or no, and that's it. Doesn't matter what everyone else said. And we ran into somebody at the top that was like, I don't get what this is. And I was like, oh, shit. All right. Well, back to another ladder, and we'll try it again. Yeah. But we were close. You should try again, maybe sometime this year or next, because, there's a lot of people, the regimes and a lot of the studios. Oh, yeah. Changed. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I had the advantage of somebody who was in Hollywood helping me sell it. I don't have those connections. So it's not like I can just be like, hey, whoever, look at my stuff. But there's so many streaming platforms now. All of these things need content. It can't be that difficult to be able to get a pitch to somebody and be like, hey, look, this thing exists. Like, maybe you can do something with it. But I don't know what those ins and outs are. So I would have to go find basically an agent of whatever you want to call it to kind of take my stuff around and be like, hey, here's this. I will say this. I do know one guy who has a production company of his own, and he has told me to go ahead and send him my horror stuff, because that's what he does, is horror stuff. So there is and I think of the horror stuff that I have, Princesses versus Zombies would be the easiest thing to translate into anything, whether it's like a web series or just a little mini series for TV. I think it would be super easy. I think it could be done super low budget. And I actually have a pitch for him of how I vision sort of you doing it as a like a movie, TV show, whatever, but also using all of our cameras and stuff like that, because it's a modern day, story. So everyone would have iPhones and stuff. So I think there's a cool way to mix sort of standard, here's what's happening in the movie, with some of the almost found footage type of stuff that we've seen in films. I think there's a cool way to mix that with this that would be really unique. And, if they buy it, I do have that direct connection. So we'll see if they think that, I'm right, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. James, what about you? Do you feel there's something out there that hasn't been adapted yet that you'd like to see?
Well, there are two things. I mean, one almost got made that I still, fly the flag to want to see be made, which is they were going to make a film called Superman Lives in the 90s. That would have been, strange as it may sound. There's a great
Nicolas Cage, right?
Yep, The Death of Superman Lives. There's a documentary. I would love to see that in some form or another, a cartoon or something, just to see that story out there, see that made. What I'd also be intrigued to see is, again, it's looking at comic books, but it was done as a book, is I think it'd have to probably the cartoon format again, but the Nightfall run and the Night Quest run that was in the Batman series, I'd love to see that actually transferred in some form and made into probably in the way they did the Dark Knight Returns cartoon, where it's spread up, because the sheer breadth of it, that it's spread over several films. Those are two things I'd love to see, just off the top of my head.
I think people would, this may be counterintuitive, but I think people would freak out if we got a Batman film that had Jean-Paul Valley in the Batman costume.
Yeah.
Like, that is the old, and it's such a bizarre 90s costume, and it's been kind of updated over the years and kind of modified and sort of streamlined a little bit. But I remember when they brought him back in like the New 52, when they rebooted everything with the comics, and that costume was on the cover of a comic. And I don't read Batman comics. I'm way out of Batman. But when I saw that on the cover, I was like, oh, really? This is happening? So if I, as an anti-Batman guy, look at that and go, yo, I'm all about that. Bring me that. I think that there's a gigantic audience that would freak out if they had like you could even call it an alternate Batman universe, whatever you want to call it. Kill off Bruce Wayne in some capacity, or incapacitate him like they did in Nightfall, and give it to John Paul and run that story. Holy God, that would be amazing.
I think it'd work
James
brilliantly.
Gunn, listen to what I'm telling you, James Gunn.
Mm-hmm.
If there's anybody that would do it, it would be James Gunn, because
it's bizarre enough and outside the box enough that I'm sure he's looked at it. Whether we're going to get it or not, who knows? But I think it would be great.
Yeah.
I would really like to see like alternate something. Like, I'm tired of the recreation of the same characters we've known. Like, tell a story that we haven't.
Oh, you mean like Superman, Batman, Superman, Batman, Superman?
So
Batman.
if you're gonna do Superman, then do Superman Red Sun. We have enough like issues with Russia right now, that what happens if Superman did land in Russia and not here?
I think the only problem with that, and they've actually done that in animated stuff. That stuff's been adapted to animated things. But I think in the context of like the general cinema, when you start doing modifications like that, and I only say this because there is the clear understanding that DC wants a shared universe. Like, they want all of this stuff to work together. So
it's hard to branch
if you were to be like, well, here's our Blue Beetle and here's these check marks, and then you have Russian Superman, like, it's not going to fit in that mold. And I think that's the only reason you wouldn't get it, but that's why we do get it in all the animated stuff, because you can just tell these, interesting stories. Also, they did sort of the bad Superman bit with, oh my God, what was it called? They had the kid that had Superman powers, and he was an asshole kid.
Brightburn.
Brightburn, yeah. What if Superman was a dick? Yeah, that's basically what that was. So, but I do agree that we have
Well,
to
we
sort
kind
of.
of have what if Superman was a dick in Homelander, don't we?
Yeah, also true. Yeah, also very true. Absolutely. Yeah.
What if he was a pornoholic and a kind of a douchebag? You got that in Soldier Boy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I hate adaptations. Like,
there you go.
really, I just hate book adaptations mostly because they don't do justice to the written word. And that's because they're two different, they're two different forms of media.
Yeah.
And I guess, like, if I'm going to see anything, it's got to be something that I've read and enjoyed, but I don't want it to be bastardized. So, like, when I was a kid, I read a lot of L.J. Smith. So, yeah, I read a lot of the Vampire Diaries, and I read her Witches saga. They turned that damn thing into a TV show that was trash.
The Secret Circle.
The Secret Circle. Now, the book was so good. Don't change stuff. I mean, maybe you can't retell the book because it was, like 1980 something, but you could, I don't know, you just tell it better. Like, if you're going to do that, then do that. But don't make it some weird shit. Like, my whole thing with Sabrina was, like, you got Sabrina the Teenage Witch and then Sabrina. Like, Sabrina was the Sabrina you got in the comics. Sabrina the Teenage Witch was some weird Disney version of whatever it was. Don't get me wrong. Melissa Joan Hart was great, but that wasn't what we wanted. And so I guess, if you're going to adapt something, adapt it well.
Or you could go the other way and turn out all kinds of weird and not be anything like the book, the TV show Riverdale.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. I guess like in the newer seasons, people got like superpowers and all that. It was like, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, in the comics, you had, Archie meets the Predator and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
I guess that's where you get bizarre, like, just get bizarre stuff in general. But, I mean, I don't know. I'm just one of those people. It's kind of a purist, I guess. I'm kind of like, if I'm going to read the book and I'm going to really love the book, then don't change the book. Like, if you want to adapt it only where the changes are necessary and don't give something up. If you're going to give something up, don't give up character quality. Because that's why people read the books.
So, Tom, you're a writer. So when adapting, what are the necessities to keep? And then what is like the fluff that you can drop?
It's that's a lot of layers to sort of dissect. Basically, because I have adapted something, so I'm adapting the Wizard of Oz into the Western. So we have the Legend of Oz: The Wicked West. So for me, the adaptation starts with the characters, because you have to figure out how to take these characters into a new world, but still make them recognizable as who they are through the visual part and the characterization part. And obviously you're telling a different story, so you have to have some modification to it. So like for our Legend of Oz book, our Dorothy Gale is not a 14-year-old timid little girl running around with Toto in her basket. She's a gunfighter. She was given the ruby bullets instead of the ruby slippers. So over time, she's become this sort of known entity in Oz, and sort of like that. But at the end of the day, we still have people, and specifically Oz people, like Oz traditionalists, that once they give it a chance, they come back and they're like, you really did sort of honor Baum with this. Like, this is still at its base level, it is still Baum's Wizard of Oz, just with your sort of Western brushstrokes, put on top of it. And I would say 9 times out of 10, even the traditionalists are like, I get it. Give me more of it. So for me, the adaptation, again, it all started with character. How do you maintain the character, the internal character that these personalities are, and that the readers know, and then just start putting your brushstrokes on top of it, whether you're making it a science fiction show, a Western show, whatever it is. And I think that's where a lot of Oz stuff falls on its face, because it doesn't adhere to that. So like they did a show called The Emerald City, which was their idea was, well, let's make an Oz show, but let's make it like Game of Thrones. I'm like, okay, you've already missed everything for as far as a starting point for an adaptation of this. And when they went into the design phase and everything just got all ramped up and crazy and wild and weird, it's like, no, this is a simple story, man. You've already jumped the shark before you've ever filmed an episode. Tin Man, kind of the same thing. Although it did try to land some characterization, it still was a little too far from what we understand to be, I don't know, sort of quote unquote accepted, I guess. But that was a close one. That was a very good close one, and they did some really interesting things. And then when we did like the Great and Powerful Oz, just the Wicked Witch of the West was just terrible. And I like Mila Kunis, but you know, her story of becoming the Witch of the West because she fell in love with a guy, and it's just like, oh my God, what are we doing? This is no one's gonna like this. No one is gonna like this, and no one did. So I think that we fall into these adaptation spaces where it's like, how do we adapt it but make it cooler, man? And that's where it kind of starts to stub its toe. You know, Marvel does a lot of adaptations. A lot of their stories are adaptations of the comics, but they only use sort of the points that they need to tell their story. Like Infinity War, for example, there's no Adam Warlock. Like, where the hell is Adam Warlock in the Infinity War? I mean, that guy was an integral part of the Infinity War, but they told the story without him, and it did with different results. You know, you can decide whether you like those results or not, but it is possible to adapt a story and leave things out, as long as you have replacements that are equally emotionally attachable to the audience.
Like the key bullet points of the story.
Yeah. It's like, if you know that Adam Warlock has to do a thing, but you don't have Adam Warlock in your universe yet, you have to replace him with a guy to do the Adam Warlock things to some degree. And sometimes that could be multiple people. So it is possible to do it. And I think Infinity War and Endgame were fair in their adaptation of Infinity War, the comic book. But there will definitely be people who be like, well, this is crap because, you know, where's Adam Warlock? Where's all these things that I know from the comics? And it's like, well, adaptions are hard, man. And, you know, when you only have essentially 6 hours to tell a story over 2 movies, sometimes things have to get removed. In order to just tell a tighter story. You know, if Infinity War was like a 10 episode TV show, you have more space to do things, but you had 6 hours to tell your story. So
when you said that about making the shift, having to make a change, 2 major comic book ones I could think of where they turn them into cartoon films was the Gotham by Gaslight, where there was a major shift in the way they did that, which worked, but they also did Batman Hush as a cartoon, and they changed characterizations. In fact, they majorly changed the character in Hush. Really pissed me off. I think it really didn't do the story any justice. I could handle Gotham by Gaslight. I would prefer both of them to be more specific to what the original source material was. But again, I know the comics, so I have to look at it, you have to look at it and think logically. For the people who probably don't know the comics, they need something that can be more relatable to the mainstream market.
Yeah, well, it's more likely that the audience doesn't know the comic book exists.
Yeah, correct.
In all things. Especially something
Absolutely.
like Gotham by Gaslight. So in that point, you just have you do. Hollywood does have the difficult decisions to make. Whereas do we really honor the source material and just run with that, or do we understand that most of the people buying a ticket don't know the source material, and we have to make a story that is accessible to more people, and that's where you get a lot of these changes.
And uses, again, not giving away anything on those stories, but it's using characters, you know, where they move stuff around. They use characters that will be known to the wider market rather than these kind of niche, smaller characters. So yeah, I get it. It's just that I was nitpicking.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
As
Yeah.
a
No,
fan.
we all do it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, we all do it. But yeah, as a writer and as I'm sort of transitioning towards the Hollywood side of things, or trying to anyway. I do understand where they have to make decisions, especially in film, because again, generally you get a 2-hour movie and you got to tell a story in that 2 hours. You can't worry about all the extraneous stuff. It's like, we got 2 hours, we got 8 characters, we got to tell this story.
So, Brian, let me ask you this. Since you're an artist, when someone gives you an idea for a commission, do you get inspiration from other artists, or is it just something that you get in your head? Like, how does that process work for you?
Generally, I'll ask whoever's, like, if someone wants me to do a cover for their Kickstarter comic or something of that sort, I ask for the source material and like what direction they want to go in. I really like, I want it to not just be flashy for the sake of being flashy. I want it to be the best thing I can give them with their source material. So I mentioned that I don't draw women extremely well. So if you were to send me your source material and say, hey, here's my book, I'm going to look in there and see how best my skills, or what I think that I excel at, what from your story could I use to make what I think would be a fun and intriguing cover design, and not, flounder around. And then they'll say, well, I really want the girl. And I'm like, well, then I'm probably not your guy. That's just not, I would rather someone get the cover they need than for me to give them a turd and just say, hey, that's the best I could do. So I don't know. I try to tailor it to what they need. And then I'll try. So it's not an artist specific thing. Any artist that I admire, or they stay up in my head. So I'll always think of the Arthur Adams and the Todd McFarlane and all these Jim, like all of those influences stay in here, but I don't like pull up, let me see all of this Todd McFarlane art and see what I can, like, I don't directly like one for one it or anything.
Yeah. And Kim, you bring up your art page again, so we can kind of look at some different artwork.
You're talking about me?
Yeah, man, because I love your art, man.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, but you're the artist, so you're always your worst critic.
Yeah, but I there's so many, like, here's a little Transformers thing. Like, I just did this because I've never drawn Transformers. So I thought that would be cool. I can pull up the straight line art too, if you'd rather see that. Like, seeing it with all the, like, this. Here's a Judge Dredd piece I did. The cool story about this is I actually was commissioned to do this by 2000 AD. So it's supposed to be used for something. I don't know what it's going to be used for. So that was pretty cool. I still haven't gotten paid, but I signed the contract thing. So here's a cover I did for a Kickstarter project. The lead character is a female, but she's going around and killing people to get the custody of this little ring. Like, so I was like, oh, well, let's just have like this body that I can kind of, I don't have to worry about drawing an attractive female face. I can just draw some titties and a cool zombie face that I excel at. So I was like, let's put the focus there. So they were real happy with this, but this was, again, how I thought I could excel with their subject matter and turn in something cool. Let's see. Here's another cover I did for somebody. This was for like a novel, like a book cover. Like, it wasn't for a comic book or anything. It was just like 4 Stand By Me kids, or have this zombie lady in the woods or something that's eating kids. Hell, I
can
don't know.
Totally see that though as a comic cover.
So he was pretty pleased with that. And let's see, any more cool shit. I don't see any Too much cool shit, man. Oh, I did like every October I do 31 characters of a certain, like for artists there's a thing called Inktober where every day in October you're supposed to do one inked drawing to kind of just commit to yourself to drawing. So every October I create a 31 person layout, and every day I'll add one character to the thing until October 31st, we draw the last character, and then I get it turned into a print. So this theme was Mortal Kombat. I did The Fifth Element. I did Masters of the Universe. But that's just fun. It's cool. You get a lot of engagement on your social media when you do shit like that. Something that they can follow and like watch the progression. They feel like they're a part of it, you know? So that's cool.
Yeah.
I think
I'm a fan of your work. I mean, I don't know, Tom. I'm sure you're liking what you're seeing here.
Sure. Yeah. I like the bull. I was really curious about the bull, the Ghost Rider bull, because historically, when Ghost Rider rides something, it turns it into flames or whatever. So I was like, oh, is he gonna ride the bull or is he gonna make it like a fire bull? And you did the fire bull.
So I knew that as well, because like in the second Ghost Rider movie, he gets into this big like conveyor belt looking thing, right? And the whole thing turns into flame.
Yeah.
And the horses that they rode on, when I looked at the art, like the horses kind of had like a horse skull.
Mm-hmm.
And that skull was on fire. And I was like, I don't want to draw a bull skull and have him sitting on a fire bull. Like it's visually not going to work. Like, why are his balls not burning up and shit like that? So in my mind, it was going to be the bull with like glowing eyes. Like they would have like a amber glow to them. And then I thought it'd be cool to have fire come shooting out the nose, and then have like his hooves didn't make it. I had to blow the piece up so that it wouldn't be so small. But my idea was to have fire on the hooves, like in the thing. I thought that would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wish I could have done the skull, but then I don't know how I would transition from the bull's skull to everything else being like flesh and bone. Like I couldn't figure out how to make that transition not seem corny.
Is that the Fifth Element one?
Yeah. This is the one I did last year. So with this one, since it's such an obscure, like you either like Fifth Element or you're familiar with it or you don't. Like it's not like, oh yeah. So like for the first 20 days, all of those characters at the bottom were the ones that we were adding, and everyone's like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, what is he drawing? They couldn't, because it's not colored, it's just black and white. So up until I got to the McDonald's girl, people were like, oh, okay, that's Fifth Element. And then like all the people they recognize are the ones that I'm going to do on the last couple of days because they're at the top of the page. So it kind of backfired. I don't think I'll be doing anything as specific as a one movie thing. So it'll have to be like WWE Legends, or it'll have to be G.I. Joe or something with a mass, like identifiable. As soon as you draw the character, they'll know what it is. But yeah, so the bull was fun. I didn't know what I was gonna do. Here's what that piece looks like colored. Oh, here it is. Something like this. So that turned out pretty cool.
That face is pretty creepy.
So I've been working with a guy that does like the painterly, like he colors my stuff and almost looks like a painting. That's what these are. So the line art is still the same. Like I still draw the same way that I draw. But now when people commission me, I say, hey, if you want this like painted look, I can get my colorist this guy. Or if you want a more comic book look, then I can use my colorist this guy. So I give them that option. But there's definitely a price difference between the two. So I'm like, how important is that to you? Here. So I got the painter guy to do this one. I just wanted to see. I've never really drawn like a Spawn. So I was like, ooh, I want to see what this Spawn would look like. And then he colored it. I was like, oh, dude, that's pretty awesome. I'm just trying to draw shit that I was like, man, if I could just get a cover on one of these big ass one of these proper titles that somebody would notice. But I keep trying. But that's all the art of. That's just. I don't want to take up anyone's time. This was the Legend of the White Ranger. That was that Jason David Frank character that he's doing with Bat in the Sun.
Yeah, before he passed away.
Yeah, so I saw that they were doing this. It's like a Walmart version of Power Rangers, so he could do his own thing, right? I was like, I want to draw that and try to make a print that people would want to buy. And then I was like, no one ever asked me to draw the last Ronin. So I was like, well, what if they did a team up? And then shortly after I had it finished, then he died. But that was the reason I did this. I just never get asked to draw Power Rangers or Turtles. And I was like, I don't even know what my version of either one of those really looks like. So I was like, let's do it, because I need to have the fan art so I can try to make some fucking money.
So, Tom, being someone that's been in the industry for as long as you have and worked with so many different artists, are there any pointers that you could give to Brian?
As far as what?
Well, I mean,
there's art direction pointers, there's how to get jobs pointers, there's it just sort of depends on what he's looking for as far as trying to take steps upwards, forwards, whatever.
You would if he wants to say get on a book, maybe a Big Dog Ink book or something like that. Or
I don't do interiors, and most of his books have those nice sexy covers, and I'm not a fit for that unless you're doing like some fucking nasty Swamp Thing looking shit.
The fact that he knows that what he's capable of doing is actually a great first step, because most of the time you have to find where your stuff fits, or you have to actively if you're finding that you're having a hard time finding a place that fits, you have to start actively modifying what you do to fit what the market is asking for. So if you're seeing that 9 times out of 10 they're asking for some sort of a girl cover, you need to just start figuring out how to draw girls, even if they're still not I don't even necessarily mean like pinup girls. I mean, just generally speaking, like for example, Todd McFarlane is not a great girl artist, but when he draws the girls, they look fine enough to fit into whatever he's doing, whether it's Mary Jane or whether it's the she Spawn from Spawn or whatever. It's not pinup, but it still works for that type of a book. So within the context, like example of vampires, right? What if I wanted a vampire girl who was just bit the neck out of somebody and is just covered in blood?
Well,
that starts to line up with what you do, right?
Yeah, I did do a bloody lady. What was it for? Cult of Dracula, some shit. I recently wiped out all of my cache, so all of my pictures are having to load like forever and a day for my fucking endless drive of information. Like I have how you get files, you got to save the first draft, the second draft, just the lines, the color option, big file, small file, TIFF file, PNG file of all one artwork, 80 different ways. You're like, fuck, man, I'm tired of this. And then, so the drive is like, I don't want to load this stuff up. But I did do a profile lady who was just doing like this and covered in like just blood, like just I don't even think you could see skin. Like it was just all like gooey shit running down. I had a little nipple poking out and had a little blood dripping off the nipple, but they were like, you can't do that for Source Point Press. So I had to put like this big splash across it.
Source Point Press. They just
out of interest, Brian. Have you ever done anything for like covers in the style of the Phantasm films?
I don't know what's the style of that. Like I just know this guy, the crazy guy.
So that kind of thing, or some of the characters in it. I've been intrigued to see what kind of take you would do on something like that. So I think it could be very interesting. There's always this kind of iconic cover that was used, I think, to promote Phantasm 2 on posters of the woman kind of covering her hands and the
Oh,
balls and
I'm not
things?
familiar with that. So I don't know. Like I've done so that Inktober thing that I was telling you about, where we do
Mhm.
all the 30. My very first one was all 31 horror characters. Like that was the
Wow.
first one I ever did. But and that guy made the list.
The Tall Man, excellent.
Yeah.
Because I'm a huge fan of that series.
That's the closest thing, the most cool thing that I had was I did a like what if Venom took over Jason Voorhees? Like I had that transition. And
That'd be interesting.
and
Chaos.
what if Carnage took over Freddy Krueger?
Wow. Now that would be
Oh, here's
just
that-
the idea of what those characters would be is quite interesting.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
a film
I'm
that
trying
needs
to
be
find them,
made.
but I don't want to take up everybody's time. So I found this little snippet of the girl thing that I did, right? So that was kind of cool. But I was there's a lot of like if you get stuck in a spot that doesn't look like it's going to turn out real good, you can just put some blood there and then work your way around it. I'm trying to find the Venom because here is a Venom Predator I was going to work on. I was trying to figure out how the two would interact.
I gotta go help over.
Oh shit, man. See, I feel terrible that this thing is banging on loading times. And I don't know where it is in the drive. Like I could scroll to the right area and it would be there. Oh, maybe it's on the desktop. Shit, I don't know. New prints? No. All right. Well, you'll just have to take my word for it. I was really happy with the way it came out. I'm looking just
All
in
good.
case.
It's all good.
I did a
Yeah,
bunny
at the end of the
mask.
day, artists have basically two choices. They have, I'm going to do it my way, the way that I want to do it, and people will find me and like me within that circle. Or you look at the market and say, I want to be in that market. I want to be part of that market. And you start to modify what you do to fit into the market. And that's those are really the two choices.
Wow.
And sometimes people will sit in their style or their whatever it is, and they'll just do their stuff for themselves for a long time until somebody comes along and says, hey, that fits the thing that I do, man.
Yeah, and that's where I am. I know what I'm not good at, and I will softly work my way in there. Like the Velma piece that I just did, I wouldn't have chosen myself to do that, but I was like, all right, I'm adding this enough other stuff, enough sparkly stuff around it that if my female comes out a little less cool, that all this other shit. So I'm building the confidence up to get there. I'll never be, oh my God, look at that Lady Death cover he did. But I can, my goal will be to do a passable female face.
Start with things that are going to lend to what you do. Like, for example, Red Sonja. You can gear her up in all kinds of straps and belts and spikes and swords and start with things that are going to fit in with what you do already, and then practice on the weak points. If you think the weak points are the faces, then do all the cool details, and then use that to then start work on your faces. And just over time, you'll just get better at doing the faces, and and you'll already have all the detail stuff under your belt.
I'm working on it. I don't like doing things that I suck at. So, like, when you sit down and you do it, and you're like, well, why did I fucking waste my time? Because you look at the piece of paper, and you're like, that's shitty. And I know that's what practice is. But mentally, I'm having a tough time working through what it's going to take for real.
Sure.
So I just settle where I am, and then kind of every now and then peek out, just try to find something.
And I think, Tom, as a writer, there's times that you felt like that, and then you as a teacher have felt like that. I mean, that's
you see stuff
human.
that just falls flat. You're just like, well, shit, that didn't work. Or I'm like, this is in the plan, and then I'm like, this fucking story sucks.
Well, as a writer, it's like we have the supreme advantage over the artist in that our erase is just click, rewrite that scene. Whereas the artist has to like throw the paper away and start with a clean page again. But yeah, I mean, that's what drafts are. That's what practice is. That dialogue's terrible. I'm getting rid of it. We're going to redo that dialogue scene. My Red Sonja looks awesome, but her nose isn't right. I got to fix that nose. We all have those things. We just have to kind of try and push ourselves to make them better as best and better as we can as we go along.
Yep.
So Tom, I'm going to give you a little bit of time here to push this Kickstarter. So if you want to bring up, the Kickstarter again, and
we don't have to do that. We did it at the beginning. That's fine. We don't have to shove this stuff down people's throats here. I'm more than happy to everybody came in knowing that we're going to talk about movies and stuff. So I'm perfectly fine with that. Now listen, as soon as Big Dog Inc. stuff is a movie, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about how great my movie is, right? No matter how bad it is, we're going to talk about how great it is.
Yeah.
That's the way that show's going to go down.
I could totally see you probably would have to win the lottery or no financial backers and stuff, but I could see a Big Dog Inc. as a production studio, straight up your own little studio.
Well, we have more than enough IP to make stuff. It's just a matter of, like we said with The Legend of Oz, the guy at the top didn't see that it was viable. Now this was 8 years ago or so. One of the things that,
right? Because I remember you told me about
yeah. One of the things that he said was one of his decisions was Westerns don't sell. And now we're looking at things like Yellowstone and there's Westerns everywhere. So there's always cycles to things, and if we.
But this isn't a straight Western either. This is fantasy. I mean,
right? It's a steampunk. It would fall under steampunk, right? Which there's really no steampunk in the market. Not really, and it's not pure steampunk, but it does have enough sort of Western meets magic meets whatever. So I do think it would be a very unique thing on TV. But we are also at a point where Hollywood isn't really looking for unique. They're looking for how easy and digestible is this to market. And even then, it's things are coming out and getting one season and canceled. So, even almost in some cases, regardless of viewership. So it's a really rough market. It feels like it should be easy to get things made just because there's so many places that need content. But at the same time, stuff just gets canned if it doesn't reach $1 billion or 1 billion viewers. They're just well, no one cares about this. No, dude,
there should be hope in that Steven Seagal and Bruce Willis are making movies still to this day, so somebody's got money out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It can be done. It's just a matter of finding the right people who understand the project and are willing to sort of stand up for it and be hey, look, I think this is cool. If I were to show Oz to an actress and be I would love it if you were Dorothy, and she'd be this is awesome, this is badass. And then I got a foothold, right? Then I can go to a producer and be look, this actress wants to be Dorothy. You know who she is. She wants to be Dorothy. He'd be oh, really? She likes this? Oh yeah. Then we start the ball rolling. It's a completely different game than just random dude with random IP trying to sell it off to Hollywood in some capacity. So it's a game that you have to play. There's a lot of sort of layers to it, and I'm just not at the point where I can do it yet myself. So if I were to, outside of the one connection that I have with the horror guy, but if I can make that happen, if he's willing to take any of my stuff and turn it into something, then again, it's sort of like when I made the Critter toy, right? The action figure. We start to change perception of what the company is. It's no longer just a comic book company. Now it's a multimedia company. Now it's comics. Now it's toys. Now, these guys had a little movie that they filmed, and it's suddenly the perception of everything you have changes, and the eyeballs start coming in well, what else does he have? What else does he have? So we kind of have to just make these little steps. And the first step that we have is we got to get this toy out, which is still, in China, but we should have them out here by the summertime. And then once those toys are on our table at Comic Cons and on our website and so on, again, that starts to change a little bit of perception. If we can get this thing optioned as a movie or TV show, Tom's got stuff optioned now, what's happening? perception, and that's it's like going into Image Comics. I had this conversation last night with somebody who was like, yeah, I want to get into comics. I'm like, you have no chance of getting into comics because they don't know who you are. You can't get into Image Comics anymore until they know who you are. So you have to build yourself and create a perception of yourself that a publisher or a studio or a director or an actor says, damn, that's awesome. And then the doors open for all of that extraneous stuff. But if you're just over here going like, hey man, I've been doing this for 13 years and I got all this IP, nobody cares. Nobody cares. The fans care. They like your books, but the general world that doesn't know who you are, you're not marketable to them yet. And so Hollywood's not going to notice until you've started to make these little inroads into the places that they look.
Yeah. So like, I don't really like bashing people or anything like that, but there is a company here in Florida and they make great books, Scout Comics. They have media, like they have stuff out in Hollywood. Like they have a lot of their comics are optioned. And they're not a big guy either. I mean, they're small, like Big Dog Inc.
Yeah, but they came in as a media company. They were not a comic book company, and Scout doesn't produce anything. They take people's IP. They're an IP hub, basically. All of the stuff that is out through Scout is not literally produced, like made, written art by Scout. It's all creator-owned stuff. So
Right.
they've taken creator stuff and be like, hey, we'll publish it, and then we have behind that comic book company, we have a media portion that is going to look at your stuff and could potentially, do things that way. There's a lot of companies like that, a lot of them, and the comics don't sell for squat, but because they have that connection, Hollywood isn't really concerned about comic book sales per se. They're just interested in what are the stories that are happening, what stories are there that exist. There's tons of comic book movies that people don't even know are comic books. Like they have no clue that they were comics before, because they're not really marketed in that capacity. It's not Marvel Comics makes Iron Man. It's not, hey, this is a Scout Comics comic that's now a movie. Like that doesn't happen. It's just, here's a story and it's interesting to somebody. And they're like, yeah, give me that. And let's go make a TV show out of it. So there's a lot of comic book companies that started with connection to Hollywood. That's just what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people that work for, Scout, great people. And I, being a fan of Big Dog Inc., I'm still always scratching my head. I was like, why hasn't any of this been turned into like a streaming series? I was like,
well, part of the reason that we are where we are is because we're not in retail stores anymore. I pulled us out of Diamond Comics and retail stores about 8 years ago to focus on crowdfunding and direct sales, me to the customer, not me to a distributor, to a retailer, to a customer. The chain is now basically three pieces: me, Kickstarter, you. And so we don't have that, comic book resources and Bleeding Cool and all these reporting sites aren't going to talk about us because we're not in their sphere of knowledge anymore, because we're not in comic book stores. So they kind of look at it as, well, if you're not in a comic book store, you're not valuable. Even though I'm over here being more successful than I have ever been, in my 13 years of doing comics. So success in the comic book world is based on being in retail stores and having some aspect of sales that can be charted and tracked and whatever. And then there's the rest of us that are over here going, I'll just make my customers happy and keep making my product the way that I want to make it and remove the gatekeepers between myself and the fan. And from there, whatever happens, happens. However the dominoes fall, they fall. But, again, in that capacity, I have made connections with people like this producer, and that was just done on my own through my own simple means. And, here we are still 13 years and still rolling. So, I mean, it's not, there's no failures happening here. It's just a different path that puts different eyes on the product.
Well, I have a producer friend that's on my Facebook. He's Alan Tudyk's production partner. Maybe I'll put in a word and We'll see.
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk to anybody. I mean, nothing, even with me pitching to this one particular guy, there's no contracts. So, I mean, everything's available. So if he wants to make a critter cartoon, let's go. If he wants to make a sci-fi thing, I got it. Whatever you want, I got it.
So Brian has to head out. So I'm going to give him one chance here to plug his socials so people can check him out.
No, I gotta go, guy. I gotta get ready for some stuff. But thank you guys for having me. I wish you all the very best. Just Brian with a Y, Silverbacks with an X at the end, and you'll find me. Stay cool.
Thank you for joining us, Brian.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
See you later.
Yeah, I mean, I dig his art, and like I said, when you're a creator or something, whether you're a singer, a songwriter, an author, you're always your worst critic.
Sure.
And so he may say I suck, but he's better than me.
I look back on the comics that I've made, and I cringe. I'm like, oh my God, what was I even thinking? This could have been so much better. But I'm not going to go back in and George Lucas my stuff. It is what it is. And, people can watch the progression, I talked about Xenozoic Tales, right? I think you can watch the progression of myself as a writer and everything from when I started to where I am now. And I think that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, people rarely see, and I'm definitely guilty of this, their own, people are not, they don't perceive what other people probably see as their strengths. So I know I definitely don't see that myself. Other people say, you're great doing this. I'm like, really? Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you decided to join us today, James. Like I said, Tom's been on here at least 6 or 7 times. He's a great dude. And I think that you would be a fan of Big Dog. There's a lot of stuff that they do. So definitely, check out their Kickstarters. Wait, Tom, you do them like every 3 months or so, you say?
Yeah, basically like quarterly, and then we do a couple of little smaller things kind of in between. But yeah.
So,
but I'll come on and I'll just my social media is every now and then it'll just be like, oh yeah, I saw this movie, it sucked. And everybody will come out of the woodwork like, oh, Tom hates everything, whatever. And then I counter that with a run to the Blu-ray store and a big stack of Blu-rays. Yeah, clearly I hate everything.
Yeah. Well, me and Nicole recently we watched Violet Night because we didn't have a chance to see it in theaters. We enjoyed it. I mean, it really is what people said. It is Die Hard meets Home Alone.
Basically. Yeah. That's a very accurate description. Yeah.
Yeah. And you could tell the actors and the production crew were having a fun time making it. And I think those make the best movies or best TV shows is when, everybody's enjoying what they're doing. They're not taking themselves seriously. And David Harbour, says that he wants to do another one. The production company says they want to make another one and they want to introduce like other like fairy tale creatures or whatever. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. I mean,
that feels like that's gonna dry up in a hurry. Like, oh no, the Easter Bunny is kicking people in the balls. Like,
come on, Tom, the Tooth Fairy needs to be brought in. Bring in.
We already did that. The Rock did the Tooth Fairy already. We've already had it. We've had it. Now that would be funny if they were to bring the Rock back as the Tooth Fairy with David Hart. That would be hysterical.
Well, what happens if it's Santa Claus has to fight one of these other like? I mean, anything could be done if it's done. Right.
Yeah, no, of course. And I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I said, I would come back for a sequel. We got a little more Santa origin part. Like that was the part that interested me. But to just kind of have another holiday thing where somebody's just beating people up, it's like, this just feels like it's gonna run dry in a hurry.
But what if they did an alternate universe style Santa and had to put him up against Kurt Russell's Santa Claus? I'd start
crossing over the Santa Clauses.
Yeah,
Tim Allen comes in.
Oh yeah. Bring them all in. I'll pay big money to see that.
Oh,
Battle
man.
to the death.
There you go. That's all right. See, that's something. Yeah.
We're gonna bring Ernest back from the dead, and he'll be in it.
Well, the shared universe thing. I mean, it's a real thing, man. And if people love the crossovers and stuff, like, I mean, that's a legitimate, real.
Yep.
Like, people would freak out. Like, when they brought in all the Spider-Mans together, people lost their minds when they crossed over, all the different Spider-Man universes. So, something like that certainly would be, I think it would be crazy and weird enough that people would want to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So before I wrap up here, we'll go for like another 15 minutes. 2023 has some interesting films coming out. What do you think out of the major releases is going to be the biggest box office wise? And then which one do you think is going to be the sleeper hit?
I'd have to see the list again. I have a sense that Super Mario Brothers is going to be immense. And it comes out at a period of time where it has like no competition.
April, right?
Yeah. I mean, a few weeks before, a few weeks after, like there is just nothing to compete with it. I think it's going to be gigantic.
I think Guardians will actually be the biggest movie this year, like box office wise. I think it's going to do better than Transformers, better than Indiana Jones.
Well, Indiana Jones, we don't even know what we're getting. I mean, we really have no idea what we're getting. That could be, if that's at all good, it will probably dominate the year. But if it's even remotely Crystal Skull, then it's going to be more like Black Adam. And just
I like your optimism. I think it's going to be worse than Crystal Skull.
I have no idea, because even the teaser that we got really doesn't show anything. So we don't even know what it is yet.
Yeah. I honestly think it's going to have the problem that I said about the Black Adam issue, where everyone builds it as being this great thing that's somehow going to save the franchise, and everyone will be happy. All the the rose petals will fall from the sky, and I can't see any of this happening. Because the problem is, again, you're going to have people who are diehard fans of the Indiana Jones films. It will, it's not going to be able to please everybody. And I just cannot. I think it'll be a letdown. Which is the gut instinct I had about Black Adam. It's never going to please everybody. I mean, I'm probably one of the very different people on films when you look at things like the Batman, which everyone was making out was the greatest thing since sliced bread. It was wonderful. My viewing experience of it was okay.
100%. I 100% agree. 100%.
Though Pattinson did nail the role, I thought.
Oh, he did better than I expected, but I still ran with my joke stands before I saw it. My joke stands afterwards, which is he was basically like some emo, whiny teenager sat in the dark going, "Nobody understands me," and putting the Cure on.
I think the only thing I like, well, I mean, visually it was cool. It was a visual, thing, which is fine. And I think that's where we exist nowadays. We're far more visual than we are, I don't know what you want to call it, character driven. We're far more about the visual. I like the small portions of the Penguin that we got from him. That was, and he's getting a TV show. So, that could be interesting to see. But the rest of it just felt like I'd already been there. I didn't feel like I had seen anything, just like Black Adam. It's like, we've done this before. We've seen all of this before. Even with the Riddler in like a weird, different, he wasn't like, Jim Carrey's Riddler or whatever, but it's just like we've and this is the downside to Batman, I think, and a lot of these heroes is we've just been here before. And until you're ready to take us somewhere where we haven't been, it doesn't mean you're going to fail. I mean, it still made like $700 million or something, but I don't think you're going to be seeing the fervor that we had for the early Marvel movies when everything was new and everything was building and everything was fresh. And now it's just like, we've been here before. We've done all this, all of these superhero poses. We've been here. I mean, Marvel's even making fun of themselves in the Black Widow movie with they're like, oh, she's a poser. They even realize that it's kind of hit like a stale point. And we need something to kind of really break it out and shake up the superhero, worlds. To make us care again.
Yeah, I'd say the other problem they do have now, when you look at the film industry as a whole, if it's not done amazing gangbuster figures, it's a failure.
Yeah.
And that's partly because so much is spent on them. It's like, when Batman vs. Superman came out, I think that made 800 something million, but it's deemed a failure because it was expected to do $1 billion. And you see that a lot probably from from what happened with the huge amounts of money that the Star Wars, Force Awakens, etc. pulled in. It's always got to be bigger. It's always got to be better. And the push from the studios that it's got to be this giant thing. It's when it's a small sleeper film that nobody expects that does well and makes money. People are very. I mean, look at say Deadpool. No one thought Deadpool was going to be this amazing, huge, success it was. But I would not want to be the people trying to make the third Deadpool film.
Yeah,
the pressure on them will be horrendous.
Yeah.
So here's a list of 42 most anticipated films this year. I have a feeling this movie is going to be a sleeper hit. Knock at the Cabin. I think M. Night is going to be back to top form.
Yeah, I think that will be. I think they'll do better than expected. I mean, he wasn't doing, great on his last few films. They took a bit of a knot, but I could see this being bigger than we would anticipate.
Opening in February. It's going to have a very little competition for its time. And that's the thing with Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Guardians of the Galaxy opens in May, against basically nothing on its own for its weekend. The following weekend, nothing's happening. But then 2 weeks after, it's Fast and the Furious 10. Fast and Furious 10 will knock that out of the number one spot without even a question. And then those two will literally be racing to see who's going to be better. I will bet money that Fast 10 will outdo Guardians of the Galaxy, unless Guardians of the Galaxy is something truly, truly special. To wrap up its trilogy essentially, and push into something else, like connect into whatever we're going to do in Phase 5. That's what it's going to take to make that special.
How is the Fast and Furious franchise still going? How?
I can't help you there.
I cannot get my head around it.
People keep going to see it. That's why.
Yeah, I can't help you, but it does happen.
Insane.
And they don't. Yeah, and those things don't miss. When they come out, they are gigantic. No matter how ridiculous they are gigantic.
Yeah. So you have Ant-Man, which is probably the biggest movie in February.
Yeah.
I think people that are in the comic book community that love comic books, they're gonna see what they do with Kang. The general audience don't even know who the hell Kang is, but they have a great actor. I mean, Jonathan Majors is a really good actor. So, I guess that's really what matters is the story and if the actor's good.
Well, Ant-Man, I'm not really a fan of the first two. I like the first Ant-Man. It was okay, but it was hyper derivative of just Iron Man. But I did love all the little miniature effects. Those were brilliant. That was great what they did. The second one I didn't really like at all. This one looks like it's going to be maybe the best of them, just because it's so even though it's a tiny quantum universe, it's a much bigger world for Ant-Man to exist in, and it looks as though the story is going to be the large scale connective piece that we really haven't had through all of Phase 4. That will push us into what we're doing in Phase 5 and whatever it is that they're going to build towards with Secret Wars and and all that other kind of stuff. So I'm interested in this Ant-Man. This is the first Marvel movie in a long time I've actually been like, I want to see what the heck they're doing with this, because I don't know. I'm still in the dark.
What do you think of Creed 3? Michael B. Jordan's first directorial movie.
I'm over the Creeds. I'm over it.
Yeah, my worry is we've seen it before.
Yeah.
We've seen it before. To me, with Creed, if we're looking at the Creed films, I enjoyed them. I wasn't that brought into Creed 2. I still find it a terrible situation that Stallone did not get the Oscar for Creed. I think he was very deserving of that. Very deserving. I could never get my head around that. I mean, for Michael B. Jordan, I want this to succeed for him personally, because he's I believe it's his directorial debut, but it could end up being, flogging of a dead horse sort of thing.
Yeah. And speaking of dinosaurs, this is 65. have you seen the trailer, Tom?
Yeah,
What do
I'm
you
interested in this for sure, 100%. Yeah, and I like Adam Driver, so this is a plus for me. I'm totally game for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Scream 6 is definitely going to make a killing at the box office.
This is another talk about a dead horse. Holy
Yeah.
crap!
The ultimate dead horse. How is this still going?
The last one was abysmal. I mean, I don't understand anyone, honestly, and I think you liked it, Brian. I honestly don't understand how anyone liked the last movie. I mean, my brain was melting in my head. I was so bored. I'm like, what the hell are we doing? And we're doing another one now. I think a lot of this is nostalgia. I think a lot of it is people like us who like the movies, right? It's just like, hey, we want to talk about movies and the meta parts of it and stuff like that. And that's fun for sure. But just from a storytelling standpoint, these things are DOA.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of the first one, the fourth one has been the best.
And I think the first one was great. Yeah, first one was great.
And then of course Shazam 2, which I liked the first one for what it was.
Yeah. This is a big question mark because it's going to be a very different movie. It's going to be more standard superhero because it's the whole Shazam family and doing that thing. It's not big meets superheroes. It's not that fun, kid thing anymore, or at least I don't think it is. So this is a big question mark. I'm game for it, but it's a question mark. I don't know.
I mean, look at that cast: Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu.
And what they've said is, I believe that this is kind of like what may close off the
DC universe,
DCU. I mean, I really want the Flash to be good. There's a really sick part of me that really wants to see how that's going to be promoted. Because how do you sit down to interview Ezra Miller? So Ezra, what have you been up to over there?
Yeah.
And then a week later after Shazam, you get John Wick 4.
Love it, but that's another one. How is this? How do these films keep going?
I saw the first one; it was fine, but I don't need 3 more.
Yeah. What about this one? I'm hearing people actually like that they're not taking it so seriously.
I don't know anything about this movie.
Dungeons and Dragons.
The fact that Chris Pine is in it is good.
Hugh Grant.
But I literally don't know anything about this movie.
Saw the trailer, liked it. No, I know of it. The cartoon of my youth. I might play the game once. Last time they made Dungeons and Dragons as a film, it was an abysmal failure. So
Dungeons
can only go up from here.
Yeah,
it has a week to make money, and then Mario's going to dominate.
Yeah. This is the most recognizable IP in the world. Is this stuff? And as long as it doesn't suck, and for me, I'm not a video game guy, so I'm not going to know all the ins and outs of Easter eggs and so on with this stuff. But I saw the trailer and I was like, God damn, this looks like anything that Pixar or Disney produced. Like, it is 100% on par with all of that. And it's Mario, and it's going to be Mario Kart, and it's going to be, holy God, this is going to be immense.
Who's doing this? Illumination, who did the Minions and all that.
Okay, all right. So they know what they're doing animation wise. That's good. Yeah. This is going to be huge.
Yeah. So this movie is not going to be huge, but I think Joaquin is going to earn an Oscar nomination for this. This is, of course, an A24 film. The trailer is weird.
Yeah, very weird. I couldn't even tell you what the story was off the trailer. So.
Evil Dead Rise.
That confused the crap out of me. That trailer.
Yeah,
I know the Evil Dead, but that just I don't know what I'm watching. It didn't tell me what I was watching.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, but I have this weird fear of like Poltergeist 3 and Critters 4, where it's like, hey, let's take the monsters into the city. It's like that rarely works, but we'll see. It's a creepy trailer. I'm ready for it, but and I like the reboot. I like the remake that they did. Yeah. Very surprisingly, I like the remake that they did. So I have some hope.
Yeah. And of course, Guardians comes out a week later.
Yeah. And I don't care about that movie at all.
Fast 10.
And I don't care about that at all. But it's going to make $1 billion.
Hold on. Are you saying that Guardians is going to be knocked out of the number 1 by Fast 10?
Instantly. Yeah. Without
I
question.
think you're right. No, I think
you're
right.
100% sure?
100%. 100%.
No, I think you're right, because that, again, as I said, the films make no sense to me that they've succeeded, but people seem to love them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they'll flock to that.
All right.
Again, only exception.
We'll come back in May. We'll come back in May and talk.
Listen, I'm taking anyone's bets on this, but the only exception, the only way that it doesn't happen, is if Guardians of the Galaxy has some massive crossover thing that we don't know about, like the Spider-Man with all the Spider-Man. Like if something happens in that kind of context that people are going to want to go back and be like, holy crap, I got to see that again. Maybe. But without that, if it's just its story and whatever that story is, Fast X will knock it out of the number 1 spot.
Let's see. And then we got The Little Mermaid.
I literally thought this was already out and gone.
No.
So did I, actually.
Then you got the sequel to the Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
like this one?
That's going to do well, but it has competition right after it.
Transformers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to do great, but
no, I mean, I love Transformers from my childhood. Absolutely love it. I like the first Bay film, but after that, yeah, my interest.
Yeah, it has Transformers comes out, and then the Flash comes out. It's going to have competition really fast. So I think it's
what I like about this Transformers is it's a sequel to Bumblebee, and I thought Bumblebee was pretty good.
Bumblebee was good.
Yeah.
Bumblebee
but I just don't know. But what I mean, they've gone to Beast Wars maybe because they think it'll grab younger people's attention who aren't, of the more mature audience of my age that would watch it.
Well,
for our childhood.
Let's be honest. They went to Beast Wars because they can sell new toys.
Yes.
This is really the truth.
I mean, but you're right, Tom. It's all toy sales. You can look back at the '86 film and go, "Oh, it's wonderful. It's a giant toy advert." When you watch it as an adult,
yes,
kill off that character, kill off that character. The Flash, I want to be brilliant. I want to succeed, but it's lap of the gods. I have no idea.
I want it to be so bad. I want it to be so terrible. And I want the only redeeming portion of it to be Michael Keaton. Like I want us to all want to be ready to walk out the door, and then Batman comes in and we're like, okay, we'll stay. Like that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I think we can all agree though that after this film releases, I'm going to say like the week after it releases, they're going to announce that Ezra is no longer the Flash.
Probably, yeah.
Which is the right way, because if they do it now, it totally derails the movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indiana Jones, which is a question mark. I mean, James Mangold is a good director.
Yeah.
Did you see Ford v Ferrari?
Oh yeah, love it. Love it. I watched that last night actually.
That was good. And then, of course, James worked on the original Indiana Jones. He was like an assistant to Spielberg and George Lucas.
Mm-hmm. This is just going to be the story. I mean, what story are we going to get? How is it going to work? I know people were down on Crystal Skull because of like aliens and stuff like that. That didn't really bother me. I was okay with that.
I thought it was Shia swinging with the monkeys.
That was bad too. That's what I'm saying. Conceptually, though, the alien part of it, the crystal, like that part was okay. I was okay with that. But yeah, it's the everything else around the concept, including shooting him off in a refrigerator at the beginning was like, oh my God, there's a lot of bad in this movie.
All right, so if there's a movie that's going to dethrone Fast 10, it's going to be this one.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
I think that'll do. I mean, for the first time in a long time, seeing the trailer to that, I was really pumped. And I remember looking at the trailer and thinking, this is succeeding and hopefully going to succeed in showing you what you need to see, where the last Bond film, No Time to Die, failed. I was deeply disappointed in No Time to Die. I created an interesting response with the people sat around me. And can I swear?
I have.
Can I swear? Because at the end of that, at the end of No Time to Die, I just went, what the fuck was that out loud?
Well,
So
if
here's-
you
here's-
look at this movie, starting with the third one, they've only gone up, like quality wise.
But I'll tell you this, I'll lay this out for you a little different. So Fast X comes out in May. It's going to be number 1. It's going to take it away from Guardians. Spider-Man comes out June 2nd. That's going to beat Fast X. That'll take it out of number 1. Rise of the Beast comes out the following week. Spider-Man will still be number 1. And then The Flash comes out June 16th. That will be number 1 just because of sheer what the hell is this movie? So we're going to have a lot of flip-flopping in that sort of 2-month period. But whenever this comes out, it will take the number 1 spot for sure.
This is July 14th.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see like the historic things you'd see where, say, back in the day when Jurassic Park was, ruling the roost for months and months and months. I think you are right, Tom. It's going to be like a hopscotch game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now we have a film that's been number 1 for almost 7 weeks, and that's Avatar. And I had a conversation about this on my Facebook, and Tom chimed in, and then there was a little argument with this Allen guy was talking about that's not how box office works. So it's like, okay,
yeah, he got hung up on the money versus the just time in number 1 spot, which is what we were talking about.
I'm just gonna have to jump off for a sec because I'm gonna have to change headsets because my battery's about to die on this.
Sure.
I'll be back in a sec.
Yeah, it's we've had this conversation a few times about the length at number 1, and it's kind of surprising how there until now. What was it like? It was Avatar the last time, right? That had the longest run for a movie.
It was Titanic with 15 weeks at number 1.
Okay.
And then Avatar was the last film to be number 1 for I think 7 weeks.
Right.
Or maybe
and that was the most recent film. Everything else was like from the 80s and 90s backwards.
Yeah.
It was an interesting list. It was a very interesting list. And now here comes Avatar again, and they do it for 6 weeks again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I rag on those movies, but I think Avatar is just funny because it's the movie that everybody sees and nobody talks about. I don't know anybody that's coming onto my social media and just raving about Avatar. It just has never happened. I know there's some people that have been like, oh, this was cool. And then that's it. It's gone. So Avatar is a really bizarre entity to me.
Yeah. I mean, just never bet against James Cameron. I mean, if you look at all of his films, just don't bet against him. Hopefully this year, fingers crossed, we're supposed to get Blu-ray and 4Ks of The Abyss and True Lies.
Oh, wow. The Abyss. Jeez.
Yeah.
I just read something about The Abyss. The two leads, I can't think of their names, the dude and the girl. They are not wanting to talk about making The Abyss.
Huh.
And that makes it even more mysterious because there's no details. They don't say like, well, it was this terrible experience because the director, like, no, it's just, yeah, that was not what we want to talk about. So now I want them to talk about it because I'm like, what was it like a really hard shoot? Was there cast fighting? Like what the heck happened? Because it's a good movie.
It is. Which version do you like the best?
It has been probably 20 years since I've seen either. I do remember when the director's cut came out, because that was when those things were first kind of starting to happen. But I don't have enough memory to really compare or contrast.
Okay.
So if it comes out, I'm 100%, I'm going to grab it because I haven't seen it in forever. I feel like it's a forgotten movie. Because it's not a franchise. It's just a good movie from a long time ago, but nobody talks about it. So yeah, I think that'll be great if it does get a release. I'm all for that.
Yeah. I want to say though, over not in the UK, but on that side of the world, I think there is a French or German company that did release either True Lies or The Abyss. James, are you familiar with that? Is this true? I thought I read that.
I'm not entirely sure on that one, I'm afraid.
There's a company over there called Zavi that does a lot of stuff that we don't get over here. Or more specifically, they just make Region B stuff.
They just
you can get it, but you've got to have a player. Yeah. But it's there's a lot of stuff that's coming out now that that's getting remastered. Like I just heard that Jaws 2, Jaws had its 45th anniversary. They put out a new steelbook and stuff. I thought for sure that we would continue to have Jaws 2 and beyond ignored by the studios. But next year is the 45th anniversary for Jaws 2, and they're doing a 4K release for it. So I'm really excited.
Oh, yeah.
Jaws 2. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I am praying that they give us some bonus materials that we've never seen, because there is endless footage that they could put in from the original director when they started filming that was all scrapped. They could put that in. There's all kinds of extra death scenes that they decided not to use. They could put that in.
Nice.
I'm not really holding my breath for a lot of that, but if Universal is like, yeah, let's go ahead and do this, hopefully this is a really great release.
So going back down here the list, so the next movie after Mission Impossible is the new Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah, this is interesting because right after Mission Impossible, the week after is Oppenheimer and Barbie at the same time.
Now that will get interesting, because you're talking the most polar opposite on films possible.
Yes,
I'm hoping Oppenheimer will be good, because I was not that sold on Tenet.
Yeah,
it was a letdown. Because up to that point, every film that I'd seen of Nolan's, I'd loved. Tenet, but
this is going to be an interesting week to see. I would bet. Here's my bet. I would bet that Mission Impossible maintains its lead and holds number one, but I would also bet that Barbie outdoes Oppenheimer in its first weekend.
Yeah.
There's a sick part of me that wants Barbie to actually just for the sheer oddity to go, hey, Barbie succeeded over Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I know, right? That's there's some gold right there for sure. Yeah. And there's another movie that we don't even know what the hell it is Barbie. Like, what is this movie?
Yeah.
And then you got the Marvels coming out.
And then the Marvels will take number one away from all of them, because that's what Marvel does.
Yeah. And then there's this movie I don't know a lot about, but it's Roosevelt, Martin Scorsese with Leo DiCaprio.
I don't know. I've never heard of it.
The worry is, could this fall into the problem they had when they made the J. Edgar Hoover film? Which is, there was huge expectations. DiCaprio would create this wonderful performance, and it just did not. It felt.
Oh yeah, you know what? They moved Barbie, right?
Oh, did they?
I think.
Looks like they did. Yeah, July 14th.
July 21st.
Oh, they moved it. Okay, so it's not up against Oppenheimer then. Oh, that's not as exciting.
A giant plastic doll beating nuclear.
Well, let's see. Hold on. Maybe. Oh, wait. No. Yeah. July 21st. Yeah. It does come out. It's just the way that they have this list. Yeah. Barbie does come out the same day. Yeah.
Good. That'll be a fun weekend then. That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair for Margot Robbie, I would like Barbie to do well, because she's quite hit a few bumps of late. And I don't know.
James, what do you think of Greta Gerwig, though? She's a pretty good director, yes?
Oh, I do. I certainly, yeah. I mean, to be fair, the trailer, because I had no idea what to expect from this, and I love the trailer.
Did you like, what was it?
Crack me up.
Lady Bird, right? Is that what she did, Greta?
Did she do that? I don't think Greta did Lady Bird, did she? I don't think that was her. I could be wrong, but I don't think that was her.
Let me check on my phone here. I thought that's what she did. Yep.
Pass then. Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's good. So yeah, let's hope it succeeds. The question is, what is it? Is it poking fun of itself? Is it going to be some kind of weird magical little story we haven't seen? And Barbie's gone through some interesting iterations as a film, because at one point I believe they were looking at someone like Amy Schumer in the role in some sort of form. So we've now gone to what you would consider the logical Barbie, which is someone who looks like we would expect Barbie to look like.
Yeah, she's wearing the original Barbie dress and the hairstyle.
Which I twigged. She's designed to look exactly like the doll when it first came out.
You know what I'm curious about though is it's not Margot and it's not Ryan. It's Simu Liu who's in the movie as well. I'm curious to see who he's playing.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, I doubt I'm the target audience, but since I don't really know what the film's about, it may be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I absolutely love it. So who knows?
Yeah. So the next week we have Blue Beetle, which, hold on, not the next week. Well, yeah, I guess a couple weeks. August 18th, Blue Beetle. It was supposed to be on HBO Max, but they said that it was too good for HBO Max and they're moving it to theaters.
This will be another Black Adam thing. No one's going to care.
I think the problem you've got with Black Adam and the Blue Beetle, these are kind of fringe characters. They're not that well known. If you're a comic book fan, you know what it is. You know who it is. I can't see it. I think I have this horrible feeling it's going to end up in the situation that we had with the unmade Batgirl film, where it looks less than you would want for a film. I mean, I look at Batgirl, a lot of people are going, oh, this should have been given a chance. It looks like it'd be wonderful. I think it looked like cheap TV. It looked like a TV film. It didn't look like it was deserving of a cinema release. And I have a horrible feeling Blue Beetle is going to be that as well.
Yeah. And then you got The Nun Part 2 in September. Well, I mean, the Conjuring films, they make money because they're made for cheap.
Mm-hmm. I like the Conjuring stuff overall. I love the 3 Conjuring movies, the 3 of them.
Yeah.
The spinoffs are all kind of okay. You know, Annabelle's are okay. The first Nun was okay. It's fine. You know, I don't put a lot of stock in whatever this is going to be, but I'll probably go see it. It's just for fun. I mean, most horror stuff now is just for fun. It's like Megan, right? That new Megan movie. Like, what a piece of crap. But it was made for an audience that loves. Well, I have a feeling that really the only reason they went to see the movie is because she danced. And the dancing scene is so disconnected from the rest of the film. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Megan just was nothing.
And I heard that it was more than just a horror film. Like, actually, when you actually see it, that there's more to the story.
Yeah, I mean, there is a story to why Megan exists, which is all fine. But what you get from the story that's presented is just, again, like we've been here before, right? It's Chucky and the Terminator, you know, blended together. It's just kind of like, man, we've done this before, but now she danced. Okay, that's the big hook, and it's done well. I mean, I can't say it hasn't done well, but it was clearly. I mean, as a horror fan and as a fan of these types of things, this was not made for me for sure. Yeah. So it is what it is.
So since you really loved Morbius last year, what do you think of Kraven the Hunter coming out this year?
I didn't hate Morbius. Morbius was not a great. Morbius was very similar to Black Adam in that, okay, fine, I saw it. It was okay, it was fine, but I didn't want to see it again. And Kraven the Hunter, man, I don't even know what to think of this because we haven't seen anything yet. The dude who's playing, what's his name? Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yes.
He's a fair actor. I don't know that I see him in that role. He feels a little young for me to be Kraven the Hunter. But it's, I'll probably end up seeing it, but I have very low expectations. Very, very low expectations.
I think you're going to hit the same kind of problem that I said with like Blue Beetle, and you got with Morbius. I mean, I had this with Venom. And a lot of people may disagree. I thought Venom 2 was terrible.
Yes.
But on the first Venom, when I was sat in the cinema watching it, the feeling I got is this is like a 90s take on a superhero film. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel like it was hitting any of the things we expect of superhero films now. And this is what could happen with Kraven. I could be wrong. They could put more money in it than we ever know. But does it not run the risk that it's a fringe character.
Yeah.
You know, if you go on the street and go, "Who's Kraven the Hunter?" People will go, "I don't know." If you go on the street and go, "Who's Spider-Man?" You know who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
And the interesting on Kraven the Hunter, at one stage there was an idea or mention that they were going to make a Spider-Man film centering around Kraven. I can't remember. I think it's called Kraven's Last Hunt,
Yes.
where he kills or believes to have he's killed Spider-Man and becomes Spider-Man. And there was a real talk about them making a film of that several years ago. So that obviously got ditched, and they're going to make this. But I just fear it's going to turn into it's a tertiary character to people.
Bigger.
It won't do gangbusters. You know.
Well, and Sony keeps doing these villains, turning them into pseudo heroes rather than just letting them be villains. Now, some of them are kind of just anti-heroes or whatever, but at some point you need to just let bad guys be bad guys.
Yeah.
So now you have the guy that did the Halloween films. He's doing The Exorcist.
Oh my God. I'm going to boycott. I'm going to start a boycott.
I want this to do well. I really want this to do well.
The guy who did Halloween, Jesus, I had no idea that was the case.
Yeah. I like the idea, but I liked the rerun on the Halloween films. I liked Halloween. I mean, I have nothing against the trilogy they produced, but it got a. I mean, I didn't dislike Halloween Ends, and I didn't dislike Halloween Kills, but I don't know.
No, you didn't like them. The more you're thinking about it, the less you like them. I can tell in your voice. The more you consider it, the less you like them, because they were terrible. They were really bad movies.
I liked the first Halloween they did, where they brought it back as like a direct sequel. That I really was into.
I can accept that. I can accept
on that. You could have ended on that.
Yeah.
Halloween Kills, I liked. Ends, I'm fighting my better nature. I still like it, but I can see the faults.
Evil dies tonight.
I don't have a clue.
Evil dies tonight. And then with Halloween Ends, it's like they forgot it was a Michael Myers movie. It's like, oh crap, we gotta get Michael in here.
Yes.
He wouldn't come out of his trailer.
Ugh. Yeah.
But they did. But what I do like is at least, spoilers for anyone who's not seen it, you should have seen it if you're that desperate to know. At least they gave Laurie a nice ending. At least there was a positive conclusion.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So let's see. Let's hop into November. Dune 2.
Don't care.
I've never seen Dune 1. So.
Don't care. Dune 1 was one of the most boring things I've ever watched. So I'm not even gonna bother.
So this is not a theater release. This is a Netflix release, but I'm interested. David Fincher's The Killer.
Never heard of it.
Michael Fassbender is in it. Tilda Swinton.
That's all right.
Cast is promising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is based on a French graphic novel series.
Yeah, never heard of it.
Yeah. And then you got the new Hunger Games, which I think is like a prequel.
Oh my God.
Never seen the originals. Don't want to see the originals.
Wow.
December, there's the Wonka movie with Timothy Chalamet.
Oh my God. A remake of The Color Purple? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Oh, can I just say, if they're remaking The Color Purple, I think they failed and they should have gone down the Nicolas Cage route and made the all white remake. If they had real balls, they would make that film.
God.
And then there's the sequel to the Ghostbusters film that doesn't have a title yet.
Yeah. I'm out on the Ghostbusters now. I'm done with that.
I really
and
like.
Of course, Rebel Moon is coming to Netflix.
My worry on Ghostbusters Afterlife is the sequel. Sorry, is that I loved Ghostbusters Afterlife. I cried like a girl. Not to say that only girls cry. I just cried throughout that entire film. It really hit me emotionally, and I don't honestly see a need for a sequel.
Yeah. Well, now it's a franchise, right? Now it's gone from storytelling to a franchise.
Yeah.
And then I think the biggest movie in December is Aquaman.
Yeah. Which the first one was whatever. I mean, I'm not a big Momoa fan. not anti Momoa, but I'm not really big on him. I saw it. I thought it was great in the context of, like, I even said, like, I'm only going to go see Aquaman if they have dudes riding giant seahorses, and damned if they didn't. So I went and saw all the giant seahorses, and it was pretty fun to see. But from a story standpoint, it's, again, we've done this before. Even though it's Aquaman and he's never really been on the movies, we've done this before. We've seen these origins, we've seen this stuff, so it just didn't land for me. I'll probably end up seeing this, but there's no hype on it for me.
Right. And then James, they listened and they are making Legally Blonde 3 just for you.
Wow. Yeah. My letter writing, obviously.
Now, interesting. There's a couple of movies on here. One of them I know would not have made this list, but one of them I thought would have. And we talked about Nicolas Cage. He's doing this Renfield movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
Which could be really wild or really terrible. But there's also a second Dracula movie this year. It is called I lost the title. It is called The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is about the boat that brings Dracula over to America. So there's actually 2 Dracula movies this year, which will be interesting. And the Nicolas Cage, obviously is like a comedy camp thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is supposed to be like a straight horror story of some sort. So,
interesting.
and The Last Demeter comes out. Another one, Haunted Mansion. Haunted Mansion comes out the same weekend in August. So
yeah, well, I'm surprised. There was a lot of films that says that was 42 most anticipated films, but like, isn't like Borderlands coming out? Based on the video game, I think is coming out this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Haunted Mansion, you'd think that would be anticipated, but I don't think it really is. I mean, we know what it is. It's Disney and it's the Haunted Mansion, but I don't know that we're all like, yay, Haunted Mansion.
I want the Del Toro Haunted Mansion that he wanted to do, but Disney wouldn't let him do it.
When is the new Beverly Hills Cop coming out? Is that going to be
that's a Netflix thing?
Yeah. Is that this year that's coming out? Or
Beverly Hills Cop 4?
Yeah.
With Eddie Murphy?
Yeah. I'm not sure when that's coming out. I mean, I have no real high expectations for that.
No.
So
the third one was.
There was a third one?
I don't hate the
That's the right response. There was a third Beverly Hills Cop.
I don't hate it. I know somebody worked on it. I don't hate it. So yeah.
Yeah, 1 and 2 were the best.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's made some interesting choices, Eddie Murphy. A lot of people really hate Vampire in Brooklyn. I have a soft spot for that film. I like it.
I'm right there with you. I guess that would be one of my guilty pleasures.
Mm-hmm.
That one, and then of course Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Yeah, definitely.
Man, this has been a fun show.
Could be a really because based on the trailer, it's like Nicolas Cage is almost the guest star.
They said that he's not going to be. He himself has said he's not going to be in it a lot.
It's more about Renfield.
Yeah.
I gotta find a really good list of some other movies coming out.
Well, if you just Google 2023 releases, you'll get a big list. If you go to movieinsider.com, it lines it all up pretty nicely. Like we have, there's the Meg is back. There's the Meg 2 is finally coming out.
God almighty.
Yeah.
Did we not learn enough in the first failed awful? I mean, the problem for me on Meg is I got into the books.
Oh yeah.
I loved the books. I yearned to, as a kid, teenager, I kept seeing the book in the bookshop, and I was thinking, it's interesting. Finally got it, loved it, read the sequels. Some are good, some are not so good, but the Meg film. I mean,
did you see on Peacock the movie Sick? I thought that was a very interesting movie.
And I didn't read the books for the Meg, but when I saw the movie, because I watch all the shark movies, I was like, this is like, what if Disney made Jaws? Because it really wasn't particularly violent or gory or anything for a shark movie. But the weird part was it's not like there was merch that they were trying to sell to kids, so if you're going to do something like this, like make it like when the shark starts swimming through Thailand, right, and there's just like 1,000 people in the water, that dude should have just opened his mouth and just started like swallowing dudes. It would have been amazing. So maybe hopefully in this second one they'll amp up the shark action to it. But Meg was a very strange. I mean, it's certainly not at the bottom of shark movie lists, but it doesn't really make the top of it either.
No, this movie right here, Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear, man.
I honestly thought this was some sort of strange joke when I first heard about this. I was like, what? And then I've heard it. Obviously, it's based on a real thing.
Yeah.
I have a feeling this movie is going to be like The Hangover, because remember, The Hangover wasn't really like a super huge movie, but people kept going back and back and back. I have a feeling this may be one of those type of movies.
Yeah, this is going to be. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, is it something where I would have to take cocaine to really appreciate the show?
Probably couldn't hurt. But yeah, I think this is going to be a sleeper, a general sleeper hit. It's not going to be like a $500 million movie or anything, but it's going to be one of those things that is so unique and so different from what we have been getting within like the superhero fare and so on. I think people, assuming that it's a good movie, I think people are going to enjoy it. It's going to become one of those very instant cult classics.
This one's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
This is an example of, hey, something became public domain. Let's make something fast.
Yeah. I think people will see it out of curiosity.
It's probably going to be quite a bit like they made a film, didn't they? Was it about a year or two ago that was kind of like horror orientated, based around like a child's like TV show, child's cartoon. I think it was what was it? Yeah, I can't off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was based on, but it was something of that kind of strange ilk where they'd taken a child's love to the Banana Splits. That was it. Or a film based around the Banana Splits. So I think it's going to be that kind of thing. And John Wick, I assume, will do gangbusters, and probably, even if people don't like the story,
but then Mario comes out, and then it's gonna that'll take.
I want to see what other movies.
I'm really confused. They're doing The Color Purple.
Yeah, that's a weird choice.
This movie right here, Pixar.
Mm-hmm.
No clue.
I'm surprised this wasn't even on the most anticipated. I mean, it's a Pixar film. Let's see.
I didn't even know of it, so
I've never heard of it. Yeah, no clue.
Yeah, that comes out in June. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Meg 2 comes out in August. There's this one.
Yeah, new animated thing, right?
Yeah, from Seth Rogen.
Yeah, that could be good or bad.
Well, Seth Rogen's the person that gave us Invincible on Amazon.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. It could be good or bad. Yeah. But he's also given us some bad, so it could go either way.
Lots of bad.
He's a really interesting guy, and I think he's got a lot of depth. Like if you ever watched Steve Jobs, he plays oh my god,
Wozniak.
Yeah, Wozniak. He plays Wozniak. Yeah, and he's really good in that against Michael Fassbender. So he's a good actor, but he's also just sort of got his hands in so many pies that some of it doesn't quite level up.
Yeah. Now we have a third Equalizer. I like the first two. I mean,
never seen these. Never.
I've not seen them. In my world, the Equalizer is an old man
Michael
with
Caine.
grey hair. Well, yeah. To be fair, Michael Caine would make more sense because it was Edward Woodward. So yeah, it will be somebody of that ilk. Yeah.
Let's see here. Chicken Run 2. Yeah, supposedly
Star Trek 4 is on the schedule.
I don't see that happening. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that supposed to be the Tarantino Star Trek?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Is that a film about Bernie Mac?
Could be, yeah. Looks like a
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
biopic, yeah.
John Legend is doing it.
That could be very interesting. That could be interesting, yeah.
Let's see what else is coming out. It's no release date.
Unconfirmed now. Now we're in unconfirmed.
Cher biopic. Coyote Ugly 2.
Because of course.
Yeah.
Disney's
It's a bit like the
Hercules,
Chicken
which is a
Run.
live
It's like the
action.
Chicken Run sequel. Bit of a gap,
Okay, Fantastic Beasts is done. They're not making another one.
Yeah, that's over. That's it. Red Mane is gone. Yeah, it's over. Ghostbusters High. So this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about, guys. This is why the franchise is over for me.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but I know exactly what you mean.
I don't even know what this is.
I mean, Afterlife, I love it.
Oh, no. This it says may become a movie or
all of this. We're in the unconfirmed list right now. So it's
I mean, you've got to think though, for Ghostbusters, it's like Dan Aykroyd's entire second life is sort of making sequels or writing things to do with Ghostbusters. So I can understand.
Yeah, Knight Rider's not happening. I don't know what that is. Yeah, some of this stuff is just like made up. Now, this is real. This is the third in the X franchise. So you saw X and then Pearl and then this Maxine. So this is a direct sequel to X because Pearl was the prequel to X. So this takes place in the 80s in Los Angeles during like the porn boom.
Yeah. I haven't seen Pearl yet. The first one was okay. I liked it. It was interesting, but I didn't get to see Pearl yet.
Pearl's good. Yeah. But that's it, gentlemen.
Interesting futures.
Yeah. I am going to go to Taco Bell and get some dinner because tonight is the Royal Rumble.
Okay.
Over in the UK, it's bedtime for me shortly.
But James, you got before we go, do you want to give a little preview of what you're working on for the Reels and Heels Facebook page?
Yes, there's I have more than one thing I'm looking at doing, but I am looking at a beloved comic book favorite that I hope I can do justice in my my editorial. That's the kind of thing I'll be looking at doing for the most upcoming thing. But I'm going to take a look at various different films from various different genres. I'm not treating them as straight reviews. It will not be that. There'll be some element of that, but it's looking to kind of have a whole discussion about a film and what it has become and maybe the impact it's had and its history. And I'm hoping it will be something that interests people. And I'd ask if there's anything people want me to also discuss. I'd be open to doing that as well.
Yeah, and then Tom, of course, you have the Kickstarter ending. How many more hours you have?
Basically 2 hours. Yeah, 2 hours.
And then after that, what do you have planned? Convention or anything?
No conventions planned for a little while. But our next, the next thing that we're going to have happening on Kickstarter is I'm working with Dynamite Comics now. So I'm writing a book called Bad Kitty for them. It's actually, they did an Indiegogo last year for it. And those books are now out in circulation. So I'm officially published by another publisher now for the first time. So that's really cool. And we're going to be taking Bad Kitty to Kickstarter next month as sort of a last chance. So if you didn't get the Indiegogo version, you'll be able to go over to Kickstarter and get it. And they've already given me the green light to write another book for them. So I'll probably start writing that book this year. And then the idea is to take that book when it's done and do another Bad Kitty series that will then also take that second book that hasn't been announced yet and sort of blend them together, because I'm writing them as they are their own entities, but they have a connecting thread that we can put them together. So that's sort of the goal. And I have a loose yes from Dynamite to do all of that. But we just got to take it one step at a time and make sure it's all working and going in the right direction. But yeah, that's where we are.
Nice. All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us. And I know people are going to be looking forward to reading what you have, James. Like I said, I saw this comic book thing that you're writing, and it is very beloved. It's actually probably more popular than some of the live action stuff. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. But I'm really looking forward to doing it, and hopefully putting out something that people will enjoy. And thank you for the opportunity again.
You're welcome. All right, Tom, it was a pleasure having you on, and you're always welcome. I should just bring you on various times and call the segment Tom Hates Everything.
I'm always happy to cause a little trouble.
Yeah. But until the next time, it is time for us to ring that bell.